Call the meeting, the regular April 12th, 2023 meeting of the Parks and Community Services Commission to order. Would you all please rise and join me for the pledge of allegiance? Ready to begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job with enthusiasm. I like it. Okay, thank you. Can we have roll call, please?
Chair Keniston Lee,
Here.
Vice Chair Dorlick,
Here.
Commissioner Osland,
Present.
Commissioner Mitra,
Present.
Commissioner Lopez Lucy,
Present.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesek, Student Commissioner absent, and Commissioner Breed is absent, but will be here. All righty. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to item 4, special items and announcements, and we will have our esteemed director, Kathy Hyman, get us kicked off. Do you have anything you want to announce first, or do you want to do that second?
Either way.
Okay. Why don't we go with our temporary employee of the month and for March 2023, and Amanda Tugwell, our recreation coordinator, gets to introduce us to Esther Wu. Come on up.
Good evening, commissioners. I would like to congratulate Esther Wu for being selected as the City of San Ramon Temporary Employee of the Month for March 2023. Esther has worked for the City of San Ramon since May of 2022 as a lifeguard for the Parks and Community Services Department's Aquatics Division. Esther has been a wonderful asset to the aquatics team from the start. She always delivers flawless customer service, interacts positively with her peers, and always brings a friendly attitude along with a smile, as you can see here, to each and every shift. Esther is often one of the first to volunteer and assist her fellow coworkers when they are sick or need help covering their shifts. Anytime supervisors or managers give her direction, she executes the task in a timely manner and always makes it her priority to fulfill all requests. She checks in routinely to see if additional assistance is needed. And recently, full-time staff needed someone to help by being a victim for lifeguard applicants' skills test. Well, Esther quickly volunteered to hop into the pool to assist and had a positive attitude the entire time, even when it was very, very cold out. She's always excited to work shifts and be with us at the aquatics department. Esther is currently a junior attending California High School and anticipates graduating in 2024. She has plans to pursue education in the medical field.
in progress.
She has plans to pursue education in the medical field and highlights her experience with San Ramon as her reason why. Esther is a valued member of the aquatics team, and we look forward to seeing her grow. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Esther for her dedicated contributions to the department and the City of San Ramon. Thank you, Esther.
Recognizing that you're temporary employee of the month. And I did want to say, because we get to read about you in advance, and it definitely was clear that you go above and beyond and that you have a positive attitude, which we love. And I love it anytime somebody mentions that there's a smile attached to that, because that goes a long way. And I think it's very telling that will look forward to working with you. That means you must be doing something right. So congratulations. You want to say something?
Personally, I think there are like many other people that deserve this honorable award much better than me. But I would like to thank all of you so much for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And thank you so much.
All righty, that's always a great way to start the meeting. Okay, so let's go to Kathy Hyman for some special announcements.
Of course, I always have some announcements for you. So first off, I think you all got an email from Christy about our Doherty Station Community Arts Center potential grand opening dates. And I know some of you already responded, but if you did not respond, we really would like to know if you're not available, because we're trying to narrow down dates with your schedules and city council schedules and staff schedules. So the dates we are toying with are Friday, July 7th, Sunday, July 9th, Monday, July 10th, and Saturday, July 15th. So please, if there's any dates you absolutely can't do, let Christy know as soon as possible. Also, I think you're also aware, but some of our Parks Commission terms are coming up. So I wanted to remind Commissioner Osland Breed and Chair Kenneth Sinley that it's time to reapply. And so that you can get interviewed again and see if you will be appointed again. So interviews will likely be held in May or maybe the end of May. Now, another thing I don't know if you're aware of, but I know you realize that the San Ramon Senior Foundation received the local District 3 CPRS award, but they also received the Champion of the Community Award from the state of California Parks and Rec Society, which is really great. It got represented last night at City Council meeting, but just it's really nice, especially in this National Volunteer Month, to recognize our foundations and the great work that they do. So just a note on that. And with that, April is National Volunteer Month, and we will be doing some celebrations for our different groups of volunteers a little later in the season. I think the farms plan something in May and the seniors are still looking for a date, but we will be recognizing them, suffice to say. And once we get dates, we'll let you know when those are. A few events to mark your calendars for. This Saturday is a big day at the farm. So it's our Parks Make Life Better Day. So that's going to kick off at 9 a.m. till noon. It's also our Arbor Day celebration, and that's going to kick off at 10:45. And then we're celebrating the fabulous opening of the Organic Garden, which was funded by another one of our foundations, the Historic Foundation, at 11:30. So definitely a great morning to stop by the farm on Saturday. It also happens to be, although this is sold out, so I guess I'm kind of teasing everybody by mentioning it, the Secret History Bus Tour with our past mayor, Bill Clarkson. That is a sold out event, but that'll be going on Saturday as well. So if that's something you haven't been on, we keep repeating it. So make sure you sign up next time. And then on the 22nd is the Historic Foundation Sheep Sharing Day. So April's a busy month. We've already had a fashion show and tea and some other big events going. So make sure to mark your calendars.
Okay, thank you. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, we do not at this time.
Then we will move on to general public comment. And at this time, members of the public are encouraged to address the Parks and Community Services Commission on any item not already included in tonight's agenda, and comments should not exceed 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, we do. The public comment from Taiwan's a country.
Hello, Commissioners. First of all, I would like to ask you to please make sure there are some reserved parking spaces in the future. If you expect a large turnout, it was very difficult to park. And then I saw a very strange man sort of loitering at this parking lot, walking back and forth, seemed like he was looking out for a certain car. So if you guys can please make sure everyone feels comfortable attending public meetings, it would be great. I'm here to address to you that as a public taxpayer, I'm not comfortable with your philosophy of recovering only 50% of the cost running your program. This is resulting in our city's perpetual debt spending, especially after COVID, because we have lost a lot of retail revenue. And last year, we even had to draw down about $3 million from PARS, which is the Employees Retirement Fund. It is not to become of us, or our rating will go down from AAA to something else. And gradually our city will deteriorate because we won't have the money to maintain the beauty and the excellence of the quality of life that we currently enjoy. Yesterday, I was here for the budget workshop. Per Ms. Hyman's presentation, your projected spending budget is about $9.6 million. So if you only recover 50% of that, that means about $4.7 million that you project in your budget is all deficit spending. So where are those money going to come from? It's going to come from somewhere else. Maybe DV-GAD fund, maybe more PARS withdrawal. Somewhere, someone has to pay for it and it has to stop. I'm asking you to either cut 50% of your projected programs because we simply don't have money to pay for it. A broke person is in no position to hand out money to a beggar. So please, we don't need to pretend like we are in the position to help everyone in the world. If you cannot do that, please consider raising your fees, being charged for your programs. At least cover 75% of it to be responsible government. Otherwise, don't even think about slamming a measure on us in the next election. I will vote no, because I am taxed enough already. And most of your programs are geared towards non-residents, outsiders who come in to benefit and not for me. So please listen to my plea to you before our city is being run down to a ghetto. Thank you.
You, Speaker. So I'm going to say two things. One is just for the public that may not know this, and I know we all know it up here at the dais, but we are not allowed legally to comment on public comment. That is obviously not agendized. And so if you ever wonder why we're not commenting, it's because legally we're not allowed to do so. So I want to make sure everybody understands that. Number two, public comment in the general fashion is meant for things not already on the agenda. This one, I'm going to kind of ask staff if they ever sense that this is something that we will be discussing because we do have a budget related item on our agenda. I'm going to ask that they, weigh in on that at the time. So, but we did, of course, allow the comments. So we're going to move forward. Is there any other public comment? Okay. Okay, we'll go to item 6, approval of the minutes. As usual, it's assumed that all commissioners have read them in advance. I will entertain a motion to approve unless we have any changes.
So moved. Second.
Commissioner Dorlick, Vice Chair Dorlick has made a motion. We have a second by Commissioner Mitra. So let's all weigh in and vote.
Or can you abstain on here?
Okay.
I don't see it.
Okay, hang on, it's coming. It's coming. And then
Yeah, I
the
see it.
yellow.
I got it.
Okay.
Go.
Yeah, so if it looks, yeah, let's see.
Keeps
So we've got
beeping.
5 of 7. Is it rejecting?
Yeah, it did, but
Okay.
I've done it twice.
Okay, 6 of 7 votes cast so far, and I thought I pushed it. Okay, so we have approved 7 out of 7. So the motion passes to approve the March 8th minutes. Okay, we're going to go to consent calendar. Do we have any consent items?
No, we do not.
Thank you. Okay, commission and business. We will go to item 8.1, update on the draft 5-year capital improvement program for the years 2023 through 2028. And we're going to receive the update on the CIP. And we get to hear from Brian Bornstein today. We don't always get to hear from you.
No, I'm excited to be here tonight to give you guys our yearly update here. So thank you, Chair Kennison Lee and Parks Commissioners. This is the time of year we have the 5-year CIP and update you on all the exciting projects that we're targeting for next year and 5 years forecast overall. So jump in our outline presentation, some background, funding sources, proposed projects, then the draft budget, including projects planned for next fiscal year, and then next steps through this approval process. All right, capital program. Just to start again, we do a 5-year capital program every year. We update it and assess all the projects and the big thing I think of it is like an infrastructure roadmap. We have all kinds of projects, not just parks, facilities, but roads and trails and all kinds of other things, Iron Horse overcrossings, things like that. So with this, we kind of balance it. You hate to use that phrase a lot, but three-legged stool, we look at scope and a type of project. We prioritize projects, and then the most critical one usually is the funding. It's how we fund the projects, and that really lays out where they'll go either next year or they have to get put out for years to come. So again, and here's an example, every year we kind of put this little binder out. It's a couple hundred pages long, so it's pretty intensive, and we have a lot of staff, some of which is behind me to assist for questions that we take a lot of work to vet out and come to commissions like you guys and just get all that feedback and take our best step forward into next year with exciting new projects. Then we go into funding sources. Funding sources typically for the parks and facilities and aquatics is infrastructure maintenance fund, park development fund, and then the 2019 COP. I'll go into those a little bit more in other slides. Also, I'll mention that we do love to get grant funding. We always are keeping our eye out for that. So I know that's not listed, but we are aggressive at trying to get projects that are grants, and there's maybe cost sharing involved and matches with completing projects. So the infrastructure maintenance fund, this typically is projects that are facilities, aquatics, traffic signals, some storm drainage, and many other infrastructure type improvements if there are no other types of funds. So just an example too that we have fluctuations in funding over the year is Doherty Valley, trees, irrigation, street landscape planning. That's typically the Doherty Valley CSA and general fund. Drainage infrastructure, we have a drainage mitigation fund. And then park related, we have park development fund. But when these become short, we do this juggle. And at times the infrastructure maintenance fund has to kind of pick up some of those pieces with the funding. Park development fund, this is an important one as far as the fluctuations of the revenue. So what I really want to point out is it's highly dependent, unfortunately, better or worse, by development timing. So right now we have a really good projection of 5.6 million, but we're optimistic that will come in, but there are projects out there that you wait with timing. For instance, one of those, which is Outpost or the Rome project, which you've been waiting for about 2 million for a few years now. So you can't completely commit it. And that's that challenge with how we lay out the CIP with assumptions of when money will come in. The great thing is the projections with the new development over 5 years is close to 18 million. So that will help to pay for a lot of infrastructure, but obviously can't put in the books yet until you see the money. And that's where it's a challenge right now because it looks great next year, but we got to wait and see what happens with those projects. All right, and then the COP, this is really important. We're kind of wrapping it up. It's been going on for about 3 years. We received in debt financing 24 million. It really helped us to catch up. And one of the big things on it is we caught up on a lot of the facilities. And you'll see with those, we've got a few of them listed here. There's 5: El Costa Senior Center, City Hall reconfiguration, Doherty Station Community Center, and San Ramon Community Center, and San Ramon Olympic Pool and Aquatic Park renovation. So all of those were part of that. And a number of them, City Hall, 3 million, the Olympic Pool and Aquatic Park, over 2 million, San Ramon Community Center, over 2 million, Doherty Station, over 2 million. So that really helped to kind of infuse money to get critical infrastructure done, as again, we balance the funding sources and infrastructure maintenance fund. All right, we're going to roll into new projects that have been added this year. Every year, we typically add some projects as we go along, and dynamics, things change, new developments, other factors, and we add new projects in. So this year we have 4 projects, and I will go in more detail on other slides, but we have Bishop Branch Park, Doherty Station Library, pickleball, and trail master plan. So we start with Bishop Branch 6 Neighborhood Park. That is funded by developer Summerhill Homes. They're in development. You can see them in construction right now. They will develop a 2-acre park on the corner of Executive and Camino Ramon. They've got around 65% design on that. And there'll be certain features and landscape and play areas and things of that nature. Estimate cost around $4.5 million. And that will begin this next fiscal year. Next, we have Doherty Station Library. This one actually is originally folded in with Doherty Station Community Center and Library, but we severed them off because to finish the Doherty Station Community Center, it was challenging with the funding. We had to go out to bid a few times or over the engineer's estimates. And so we felt we'd sever those off, give more time and focus on the library further down the road due to funding constraints. Also, there's been coordination, I understand, with the county and the library association to kind of dial in some ideas of what to do there, trying to catch up with that slide there, if you will. Sorry for that. I need to. Yeah, the Contra Costa County and the Library Foundation submitted several renovation ideas, reducing reception area, repurpose some space, and moving the library book racks to create a better flow in the facility. So for right now, we've put it in the CIP. It's added as a new project, but it's beyond 5 years until we dial in on the funding for that project. Next, we have pickleball court conversion. So that one has also been added this year. That one will be a focus in Central Park to take one of the tennis courts and create 4 pickleball courts. Isn't that nice? Take 1 and make 4. So that's exciting. So that's going to happen this next fiscal year. And then the last one of the new projects is the San Ramon Trails Master Plan. So if you recall, a few years ago, there was the San Ramon Trails, open space, and recreation. And I missed one thing. I think there was 4 elements of it. That was approved in 2020. And so this one's really zooming in on the trails. I think it needs more focus, similar we did with a bike master plan, is really zoom in on the critical trails and infrastructure, connecting to maybe adjacent cities and other elements that are tricky. And I think there'll be a lot of outreach and input to prioritize these segments. The city will hire a consultant that will kind of run that and help us with a lot of the process and the key public input to help with the process and really prioritizing, which is similar we did with the bike plan, to see the input of people, what they want to really focus on, what areas, what links are important. So that's the 4 new projects. And now we're going to roll into projects already existing, but they're planned for next year. Start here with the city facilities HVAC duct cleaning and equipment replacement. That work includes for next fiscal year duct cleaning at the San Ramon Olympic Pool. And that's once the building renovation is complete. So it's kind of falls out. We're trying to do over the last few years, we try to combine everything in one. So we go to a facility and just knock everything out. It's more convenient for everyone, the public using it, as well as we get economy of scale costs to, instead of kind of piecemeal in the facility. So that will happen after. And then various HVAC repairs as needed throughout the city. And we also have city facilities roof covering maintenance and replacement. For next year, it's really just to continue addressing emergency repairs through the year. Nothing, no exact projects on the docket, just repairs as needed. And if it was a big rain like this last year, then we definitely need it. Next is city-wide exterior painting and sealing. That one is, the plan is to do the Alcosta Senior and Community Center, which is paint and drive it exterior lower trim painting. And that's for this next fiscal year coming up. All right, we got the Doherty Valley Aquatic Center equipment replacement. This one I'll have to get a quick drink and see if I can say it all in 30 seconds. So we're planning to repair and replace the children's pool recirculation pump, motor, valves, ADA chairlift, tarp reels, dive stands, shade canopies, pace clock, and finishing off with painting the children's pool equipment to make it look nice. So anyway, that's what's planned for next fiscal year for the DV Aquatic Center. Doherty Station Community Center renovation. That started earlier this year in February. It should be completed this summer. Something to note, really is a big, as you guys are probably aware, is a rebranding of that to Doherty Station Community Arts Center. And major key elements got incorporated into that, expanding open art gallery for display, expanded dance studio, rentable artist studios, music rooms, and then the other et cetera stuff is flooring, painting, bathroom upgrades, ADA improvements, lighting, things like that. So it's pretty exciting, and that should be this summer finishing that up. Then we go to interior amenities for the next fiscal year. We have a number of them at different facilities to keep up with the maintenance. Doherty Valley Service Center, replace dishwasher, ice maker. Service Center, replace ice maker, washer, dryer. Costa Senior Center, replace partition wall, the Mecco shades. Front Row Theater, painting interior walls. Doherty Valley Performing Arts Center, painting the stage wall. And then miscellaneous, some of the AED devices in some of the facilities, and doors and door hardware will be replaced. All right, on the next pages, San Ramon Olympic Pool and Aquatic Park renovation. That is building renovation now. Of course, a few years ago, we redid the pools and all those. And again, a number of the improvements were through the COP funding. But building renovation will typically include paint, flooring, bathroom updates, locker room updates, lighting, and ADA. And then we have San Ramon Olympic Pool equipment replacement. So we have the renovation of the building, and then it's actually equipment. And this again is a number of items, which is shade canopies, pool lights, lifeguard stands, filters, pumps, tarp reels, ADA stairs, valves, ADA chairlift, and the pace clock. We don't want to forget about the pace clock. And now we'll run into some of the park improvements. We're excited. We've got staff that was very great at finishing up this Bark and Ride conversion to turf field just recently. So there's a lot of happy dog owners out there trying that out. So that's been completed. And then next year, there's just funding to purchase amenities and play features to enhance the dog parks citywide. We'll call it the Doggy Disneyland, if they can really, get all the, different nuances out there for the dogs. So we're continuing with that project that has around 50,000 for just other amenities at the parks. Then we turn over to citywide park amenities, replacement and improvements. A lot of these are real similar through the years. Of course, we love San Ramon. There's so many parks, but there's a lot of maintenance, of course. So there are a lot of things that we have to keep up on citywide. So this next coming year, we have Central Park, sports field lighting replacement, Inverness Park, the park course exercise station, citywide basketball resurfacing, barbecues, benches, picnic tables, drinking fountains, garbage cans, and other improvements as such to keep up the quality of the parks. We also have a project for citywide playground updates. That one's really just focusing on one park for this next year. That's includes the replacement of playground equipment in Ramona Park. So that's Ramona Park. And citywide trail amenities replacement. There's just one item on the docket for next, and that's the replacement of a bench at the Tassajara Ridge Trail. All right, then we go into Crow Canyon Garden facilities improvements. That's an exciting one. This coming year, we have 500,000 earmarked for that project. What we're doing is moving forward. We earlier this year, we did a contract with PlaceWorks that's going to develop the Crow Canyon Master Plan and start designing the site. So this year, we're going to start that actual design of the site, and through council's direction, we're keeping one of the rooms to preserve that, but the other areas within that, within this next year, we're going to demolish. So that'll kind of start that first process as it's aging and deteriorating. And so there'll be a room and some of the features that are preserved. And then also we're working to finalize that design plan. And then again, as I mentioned before, funding, as developers pay into the funding through the Park Development Fund, then as we look years out, then we'll be able to progress with the project. All right, go to irrigation booster pump installation. We have a couple of them at Bellingham Square Park and then a few others in Doherty Valley. And park restroom renovations. We really just have one. We're focused on the El Costa Senior Center, or El Costa Senior Community Center Park needs to have the bathroom building replacement, the restrooms. And that's slated for next year. All right, recreation program and facilities equipment replacement. With this, we're focusing next year on aging lobby and public space furniture at the newly renovated Doherty Station Community Arts Center. So you'll notice there's a number of projects that we're trying to do everything together. So the furniture, the renovations, and as we roll into the next one, we have the art component of it, and that ties in as well. So next year, we've got budgeted in new art piece at the Doherty Station Community Art Station. And then also, I believe, a temporary public art piece as well. So we try to kind of couple all these projects together, and it might be under different project numbers or things, but we try to run them all together in the same place. All right, the review and approval process, no action approval, just input. The next steps is the infrastructure maintenance fund and park development fund will be presented to the infrastructure committee. That's on April 27th. That's when we really just look at the budget in the infrastructure committee the next year and the next 5 years, and that how much money, and that's what factors into how we prioritize and keep up with the demands with the facilities. Let's see, we have the incorporate the feedback from you tonight. Number one, we go to finance committee on April 24th. They see the whole with all the projects. Then planning commission reviews for standard conformance with the general plan, make sure all these projects fit within that vision of the overall general plan for the city. And then we have the city council budget workshop on May 9th. That's all, twofold, the operating budget and then the CIP 5-year is concurrent with that, runs parallel. So both of those will be discussed at that meeting. And with all hope and luck and input, then on May 23rd, they both get adopted and we get excited for July 1st and everything rolls out and we stay plenty busy.
Thank you.
So with
Brian.
that, thank you. And if you guys have any questions of any projects, we have staff
We've got the
as
whole
well
team
back
here.
there. Yes.
All
if
right.
you have
Well, I wasn't gonna, we
questions
were
or
gonna ask anything, but
details
since you
or-
brought people, we may as well. So as usual, we're gonna go with clarifying questions followed by public
Sure.
comment and then commissioner comments. And then I actually do want to kick off with just one of my questions, then I'll wrap at the end, but just a validation from you, Brian. So for the audience and as well as maybe new commissioners, what have you, the CIP project process of introducing 4 new projects, that's to get it on the radar screen, assign it a number. It does not necessarily mean immediate or even 5-year funding. Is that correct?
That is exactly, very good question. So we want to get it on our radar, but at times not necessarily immediately. So Good question there. And just as a quick example, the BR6 park is next year because the developer's going forward. Doherty Station Library, there's an example beyond 5 years. We don't have the funding set yet, but every year we re-review. Certain monies come in, grants and things. It's not to say next year that moves up. So it's just kind of the best available information we have now, reaching out to have that projection, but projects change and we do it every year. So we have a chance to pickleball conversion. That's another one that will go next year. And then the San Ramon Trails will go next year. So you're absolutely right. As a matter of fact, there are 140 projects. That's why this manual is so big. And in his example, in the capital budget, we have 74 projects slated. So you can see there's a lot of projects in there that aren't necessarily going next year, but they're in our vision, our plan eventually. So.
Okay, thank you for verifying that. Okay, so we're going to go with Vice Chair Dorlick first, clarifying questions.
Yeah, please. Could you expand on the time frame for the Bollinger Iron Horse Trail overpass?
Sure.
Good,
That- yeah, that is another big project. As a matter of fact, we present that to the TAC committee soon. That's an exciting project. We have good news. It's in coordination and with the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. They're the lead on it. We've been working closely with them and it is ready to begin soon. We issued a notice to proceed just recently, but there are materials and supplies when you're talking a bridge project of 29 million that requires some months to get, steel and other elements in. So the good news is notice to proceed issued. And we actually have a kind of a groundbreaking. We decided to marry it in with the Bike to Work Day because everyone on the bikes is going through there. So May 18th is the groundbreaking, and that's really, now you may not see a whole lot yet.
2023?
2023,
Oh, okay.
yes,
Clarifying
we're on it
question.
this year. So we're all excited. This is a
Excellent.
project in the making for years. I mean, when I started, I think 16 years ago, we were talking about it in just preliminary plans. So, and then the funding on it is amazing, really. It's when you talk about funding, there's like 10 different sources. A lot of them are grants. So kudos to the staff just going after everything because it's 29 million and a lot of it's grants, different varied grants that we cobbled together. So it's a great project to look at of getting grants and how we get creative with all these funding sources to make it happen.
Great.
Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you so
Commissioner
much.
Breed?
Yeah, hey, thanks for the presentation. You actually cleared up a lot of my questions, so nice job. I appreciate it. I
Right.
do have some questions though. On Bishop Branch 6, there's a $50,000 maintenance, annual maintenance, it looks like. How's that covered? Do we know? I mean, and really where I'm headed is, does the developer set aside a maintenance fund for us, or does the city absorb that cost once it's done?
Typically on the parks, once they are accepted, we assume the costs that are built in. For instance, there's another park, the Preserve out in Freya. They're starting to finish that. We accept that park. This park, I would need to check because we're entering an agreement on as such, and I can't give you a definitive answer. This one,
Okay.
they may be maintaining or not, so I'm not certain. But typically, most of them, including Doherty Valley, these parks, when they come online and we accept them, and we're real careful to make sure everything's just right, because then we inherit it. Then it goes into our budgets.
Kathy, do you want to weigh in on that?
Yeah, I have
Okay.
Brett here, program manager of parks, so he can jump in there.
Good evening, commissioners. Yeah, so typically when we take over a new park, it falls under our operating budget. So as I said, the Preserve, we actually put that in our operating budget for this upcoming year, 23-24 for the maintenance cost.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then the Trail Master Plan one, I don't understand it. I don't understand why we're doing it. So can you explain that a little bit more? And I'm kind of new, so.
Sure, I
that'd
probably
be
could
great.
defer to Kathy, but I do know if you looked at the master plan that had a lot of elements in it, it may not have drilled down to specific areas that you really need to work on. I think the biggest thing is getting public input and participation. The reason why I know is we did it with the Bike Master Plan 2018, and you really got a feel for what priority areas there are and what links are needed. Like in the bike one, there's key links where people want to travel east-west or north-south. The trails is similar. So I think the intent is we're trying to dive into that, get consensus of areas and paths to travel. So, but Kathy.
And I can add to that. So if you remember when we did our master plan review and we had all those items that said pending the master plan, this is that plan. When we went to do the trail segment from Old Ranch Park to the Dublin border, we hit a lot of resistance from the community. I think they came to this meeting and you heard them. And what we realized at that point is that if we tried to go as staff, one trail at a time and do public outreach right around it, that what we were going to get is that community around that trail saying, I don't want that in my backyard. But when you talk to the whole community, as we did with the master plan about trails, open space in San Ramon and what is in the best interest of the whole community, you get a different picture. And so we need some help with that. We need a consultant to help kind of dive in, identify all of the trail segments that need to be done, help us do the public outreach to get community impact, input, and then create a prioritized list and cost. So we can then hopefully plan for the next 10 years, how to do which trail segment and make it as transparent as possible for the community.
So Kathy, what we're doing is we're identifying trails that might need, are you saying maintenance when you say need to be done? What does it mean need to be done?
They're trail connections.
I
So one of
gotcha.
the main
Okay.
primary components of the master plan was connectivity
Yeah.
and people wanting to be able to walk from place to place. So like in this example, there's a trail that ends at the Dublin San Ramon border. And then there's a casual trail that people use, but it's never been developed nor done so that you can actually connect to Old Ranch Park. And they're all over San Ramon. There are chunks of trails that need to be completed.
I got you. So the objective is to identify where we have where we need to do connectivity and get public input. Okay, that's so much clearer for me. So, okay, that makes sense. And then when we do that, when we do a survey like that, do we talk to other departments like planning and, we're about to go collect a bunch of data. Is there, as we're collecting data or surveying, do we talk to other departments saying, hey, we're about to make this investment? Is there any information that you need that we might be able to collect along the way?
Oh, definitely. It's
Okay.
very collaborative when we do many of these master plans, whether it's this or bike master plan. We've done the ITS fiber master plan. So there's a number of plans we try to work collaboratively and get as much feedback and input as we can. And speaking from an engineer, I think the importance of the plan is mapping it spatially. So if you look at all the legs and components and in GIS, you really see a better picture and you see what exists and you go, wow, there's a little connection we can't get. And as Kathy mentioned, well, maybe there's resistance there, but as a community as whole could really benefit that connection, but maybe the people right there don't. So those are big decisions that have to be made that would be rolled into this plan and get consensus on, and
Okay.
eventually approval from the city council.
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, Commissioner Mitra?
Thank you. I think when I was going through that, I noted down probably these things are already answered by you, but let me repeat that. First of all, CIP 20011 Doughty Station Library one, it says beyond 5 years. That means we may not be able to finish within this proposals. Could be the cost might be absorbed later part. Is that understanding or is it something different?
Yeah, that's correct. We added this project, we put it beyond 5 years for now, because when we have to kind of draw a line with funding right now, it's been a challenging year. And again, with the park development funds and other funds are really tight this year, we might have been a little more aggressive with what infrastructure we put in. So it's not to say, like I was saying before, is we have it in the program, but it could change next year. I mean, it really depends. Timing, it also depends on the county and the library foundation and working kind of as a team and looking at funding sources. Are there grants or other things? So at this point in time, it's beyond 5 because we know we wanted to focus to get the Doughty Station Community Center done, get that done. And we severed this off because we knew we couldn't do both. We wanted to, we started out, we bid the project 2-3 times hoping to do it, but the engineer estimate, the bids that came in were way higher. So we had to make those kind of decisions on timing. And again, it's all the priorities, timing up, roll all this together to make the best decision you can to go forward with this book every year. So luckily we do it every year. So it's not like we wait. Some agencies do it every 2 years. So we come back and look at it every year and see, and a lot of stuff will shift around depending on funding, grants, developers start building more aggressively. We get a lot of funding in, and that helps us to springboard some of these projects that might be, sitting idle.
Commissioner, was that?
Yeah, just there's one more, sorry. And again, it is what Commissioner Breed brought up is that I know this for the Bishop Ranch 6 neighborhood, the park development, that 4.5 million is covered by the developer.
That's
But
correct.
yes,
And
but
we,
50,000, I was not sure who is covering it, but thank you. It's the same thing. I had the same question as well. So yeah. Thanks.
Okay, is that it?
Yep.
Okay. Commissioner Osland.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Would like it if you could explain how you come up with the estimates for the projects. Because I think what stood out for me was the BR6 park and the park development fund amount seems like that's what the park's going to cost. And then there's a maintenance. So that one just stood out, but I'm just curious if you could just
Yes.
sort of like elementary explain how you come up with the estimates. Have we received RFPs, responses? And so the consultants are telling us, or is, how does this come together?
yeah, that's a very good question. And it really does vary. When it is developer projects and they pay, then we usually get estimates. As we receive plans, they give us engineering cost estimates and we utilize that. But when a project's within the city, then we do our estimates. We might get price quotes. A lot of the maintenance and upgrades things will get price quotes or other elements, or we might have engineer estimates. So it's a hybrid of many things, but yeah, we do take the time to really look at those numbers. But you will notice on the developer projects, it's somewhat rounded. The example is the Faria, the preserve park. It's certain amount of money too, I think 7-8 million, but it's developer funded. So we'll get an estimate and we kind of just take it as it is. But when we're building and it's our funding and certain other categories, then we got to really drill into it more because we want to make sure the costs are basically more accurate, because then we're becoming back to ask for more money but there's some things that are beyond our control too. We try to do estimates and then, pandemic hit and you hear the supply chain things and then other material prices are going up, inflation. So it's a challenge. We have to try to factor as best we can into it. And again, each year we try to look at it again and see, did anything change? Unfortunately, but like even the Iron Horse Bridge, it took so many years and iterations that the number did change. We couldn't pick it out from the sky 5 years ago. So it evolves. But every year we look and try to do the best we can to determine that estimate. But when a developer does it, it's not as critical as how much money is, because we're not paying, it's the developer paying. It's just giving a ballpark of how much they're paying to build it.
So then for BR6 and the amount is at 4.5 million, I forget what it said. Yes. What if the park is 2 million to actually build it? Do the extra funds go into our park development fund for other projects?
BR6 is definitely a complicated one. So what happens is, and we haven't gotten to that point yet, but at one point we're going to dial in more on their estimate and see what features and elements are in it. I'll be working with Kathy and Parks and see if all these costs and elements you guys may have recommended are in this plan. And then we determine, is that price reasonable? Now they have obligations through the development. So whatever they spend, there's some money on the back end that they'll pay in their building permit fees. So if we agree cost of building park is going to increase, which they gave us an estimate a year or so ago, it's true. It's happened, but we have to come to agreement on a reasonable price, because whatever that is, we got to determine there might be some backside where they still owe us $1 million or owe us 500,000. So that one's tricky because we don't know yet. This is the estimate, but we haven't sat down and looked at every little item and figured out, is it something we want as part of our plan? And our price is reasonable. And that's what the city does. And sometimes we will go back and forth on prices like a design firm. You know, all design firms charge varying rates, but there's some that charge a lot. So let me say, you kind of use a Cadillac version of design firm, it's like triple what we would pay. So we might push back and say, so those are the process we go through.
Okay.
Commissioner Rosalie, can I piggyback on that for a
Mhm.
second? But to some extent, some of that must be addressed in the development agreement, right? On the front end. You're not going into it blind.
What there is right now is they have a subdivision improvement agreement, which outlines they have to build this park.
Right.
But with that subsequent, that will be a memorandum of actually dialing in on the costs. So that's soon to come, but not quite there. As a matter of fact, Kathy brought up a few days ago, where are we at that? And we're not quite there, but we'll get there and that'll help. And again, there's other projects that we're kind of waiting on that would really help too. So it's not just BR1. It's let me find my little cheat sheet here. I wrote down a few. So what I mean by dependent on developers, you have not just BR6, you have the Deerwood that just is converting from commercial to housing. You've got Golden Skate that's getting redone to housing.
Right.
You've got Outpost Rome I mentioned. Will that finally come? And that's 2 million right there. And then other miscellaneous projects. So we do our best to project, but it's still part of the guessing game of trying to figure out when they're going to come in, when they're going to pull building permits and then start giving money. And then we're all happy. Great. We get more money. We can do more things. Hopefully next year we come back to you guys, say, hey, we got more money and we can look at MUDs and this and that. But right now, not quite yet.
Commissioner Rosalie, go ahead.
So I was also wondering, this is under the facilities category in the projects list, that you have Forest Home Farm structures. I was just curious about what has been identified there in that. That was on page 4 of your attachment
Oh,
B.
right. Yeah, maybe I'll defer to Kathy. I know there is some money in there for the design.
Well, I think I can get to the nut of the question.
Mhm.
So I think that the Historic Foundation has been actively pursuing the concepts for the Boone House. And so and I know that they have committed funds in the current year. Am I right, Brad? And so as we're looking at that project, we're trying to figure out how to do it. Is it going to cost more? How's that going to work? And so we are trying to work through that. So once you've got the money into the CIP, it's not going away. So even though you don't see it in the next year, if we're able to get this all sorted out, figured out, then the project can move forward because it has funding, has a CIP, and there are funds in the project.
So the Boone House.
Yeah, so the problem is it's going to cost more than we have allocated. And I might have to defer over to you, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, and overall, the CIP overall is, it started a while ago and it incorporates all the facilities on the property. So for example, the meat locker fell underneath that, the garden, they just recently painted 6 to 7 structures, roofing, all of that kind of stuff. And as Kathy mentioned, the renovation of the Boone House is part of that project. Yeah, and then we're working through those details as far as what is the next steps, is learning more and more about the project. Is the 50, is that direction really what we want to do next? Or is it more appropriate to do something different? And that's what Robin and myself and Sandy have been working on to try to figure out. Like, the concern is spending that 50 and not getting us to the next step. And so really figuring out that piece in regards to that specific project. But the CIP itself is overall where we can lump a lot of those projects that take place down at the farm into that specific CIP and then call them out separately.
Okay.
I don't know if that helps.
Yeah. Another question I had, Brian, was about, it's on attachment B, and it was about the shade structure improvements. And I was curious because it's number 23 on the list. So it's sort of more down at the bottom. And I was just curious because I know that is it has been of interest to the community to add more shade. And so I was curious if the ranking, the number on the left is where it kind of falls in its priority.
What page?
It's
is
on
that?
page 8, page 8, attachment B. It's under projects and parks category.
Oh, sure. Yeah, this is so what we do again in this our booklet here is we just summarize. This is a snapshot because it's just in parks categories and facilities, but we also have summaries in other categories, circulation, landscape, and all those. So in the question you had under parks, this in no mean is a prioritized scale. It
Okay.
just, you'll notice they're just in alphabetical order.
Okay, all right.
Alcosta Park, Alcosta, but it gives a snapshot of the 5-year funding though. So as you go down the shade structure,
Right.
we have previous funding, but then next year we don't have any, but then we continue with more funding.
So
So
what we're looking at is there funding within a certain year
Correct.
allocated, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And then I think my I don't think, my last question is about the Alcosta Community Park, PG&E. Could you tell us more about that?
yeah, that's another one is beyond 5 years. And actually
Can I dive in there while you look that up?
oh, sure.
Because I want to just go back to the shade structures to make sure the commission understands.
Yeah.
So we got the grant funding in order to do all those shade structures, and Public Services is still working through those. So they're going to be still installing shade structures next year in all of those parks. So that's why at this point, we don't need to put any more money right there. We're still getting all those shade structures, but they funded the next year. So I think everyone's clear it's a priority and we want to get shade structures everywhere we can, but that would be the shorter answer.
Yeah. Good clarification. Thank you, Kathy.
Welcome. Now back to you, Brian.
Yeah, so
About Alcosta.
the Alcosta Community Park is another one of those that's listed with, 140 projects listed, 135 or 135 that are listed here, and many are beyond 5 years. So this one's Alcosta Community Park. Project will acquire an easement, develop the PG right away from 680 to Alcosta as a park. Project will include ball fields, picnic areas, restrooms, trail system. So right now, again, the estimate says over 2 million,
Mhm.
but again, it's just taking all these different parks and trying to prioritize them. And some of them, you'll notice if you look through, we have the developer pitch in. So the woodlot
Right.
off of Bollinger, and there's one other that
Henry
that
Ranch.
Henry Ranch that City Walk is conditioned to a certain amount of building permit issuance. They will do improvements. So that's good too. So we get that done. So this one, I don't think there's anything really tied to it yet. So
Okay.
it is all about money at this point. It's beyond 5 years, and we do have other parks more higher priority than this,
Mhm.
but we still show it, like you said, because
Mhm.
we have certain parks that we want to do earlier and then the others later down the road.
All right. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Lopez Lucy.
She took my question. I had the same question she did, so I just want to thank you for explaining all this. It's very
Right.
good and understanding a lot of things that you had in your mind, but you've done a very good job, so thank you.
Okay. Any other questions before I ask a couple? So I only have a couple, Brian. So one is, and it might be a Kathy question. When we look at building renovation and we look at that kind of thing, we're of course always looking at safety and we're looking at useful life, a big term that I have learned long ago. To what degree is there a discussion in this prioritization process about revenue generation? Like, is that part of the discussion on where we're going to focus our renovation dollars?
Got her choked up. with that
I
one.
did. I didn't. Whoa.
I'm sorry.
That or she
Hard
gets-
hitting questions.
I apologize. Yeah, I'm drinking water. Certainly from Parks and Community Services, we look at it. So as we look at the art center, let's use that as an example. We have underused space, so we're looking at ways that we can generate some revenue from that. And certainly that's put that at a higher priority. When you look at some of the parks, and we know we've got a field coming on, we're looking at the revenue generation, or the picnic rental area, we look at the revenue generation, and that does weigh into the decision making. However, like there are competing priorities for everything, and desires and needs, and sometimes things just aren't going to make money.
Yeah. Okay,
So it's,
so you're feeling that there's sufficient attention given to that part of the discussion. Okay.
Yeah, I'd
good.
like to add to that
Yeah.
too. So as our process every year, we do a 10-year facilities maintenance and renovation plan. So we look at it and really see what needs, focus or not. And that kind of helps put everything together. And it helps us forecast how much money we need. And if you look back a number of years, we try to systematically figure out how much money we need. We began this infrastructure maintenance fund. We had tried to dial in, and the certain amount that gets fed into it every year, depending on a couple of years, we didn't. The COP, when we had all that money coming, we deferred that year, but about 1.5 million. So we try to spread that out and cover all these different facilities. Again, COP helped a lot to kind of get up to par again, if you will. But yeah, we do extensive assessment of those plans, and then we prioritize what
Yeah.
facility needs the most.
Yeah. And then for the sake of maybe some newer folks and just to make sure we're all on the same page, when we're talking about developer fees that are funding, the Park Development Fund, and we talk about maintenance costs, we have a very dependent relationship on our Public Works Department because they help keep our facilities and our parks beautiful, right? So is the maintenance funded through the general fund? And how does that is any of the maintenance come from the development fund, or is that purely development of new parks, maybe enhancements? Can you give us a little information on that distinction?
Yeah, typically the question for one about the parks is,
Yeah.
and the infrastructure, typically the developer builds it, we
Right.
accept it, and we take it over, and then we take it over through varying funds, lighting and landscape districts, CSA and Doherty Valley. So there's a hybrid of sources. Now, one thing to keep in mind too, here's a good example, is the preserve. Each developer, we try to do a financial assessment, because sometimes developments don't pay their own share. So our policing, our keeping the roads and all those, it doesn't balance. So Bree is a good example. There was a shortage, so the community facilities district is set up, so they pay a little more to make that whole. So essentially we try to do that with every development. Sometimes developments give us something maybe more that offsets that element, but some don't. And Free is a good example. They're in the community facility district, and there are some other developments, but we try to run that check with new developments, so they do pay their share, because there is quite an onus on taking over that infrastructure. And we all love these parks, but we got to maintain them.
Yeah.
So we're taking in a lot of new parks and everyone loves them, but there's dollars assigned to it too, to really
Yeah.
keep them up to that standard that
Yeah.
Santa Rosa likes to see.
And maintaining them is not a walk in the park all the
Yeah.
time. Pun intended. Ruh-roh. Okay, were there any other questions from anybody? Otherwise, we are going to go to public comment, Madam Clerk.
Yes, we have one public comment from Taiwan's a country.
Thank you, Ryan. Don't go anywhere.
Okay.
We're not done with you yet.
Thank you, staff. That was a very good report and great questions from the commissioners. I really appreciate your questions today. Before I start, I want to bring to your attention to this 2022 report. In there is a page. This page, it gives us a breakdown of the revenue and the costs of how our city is operated. So per this report, last year we had 57.9 million in revenue. 11.1 million per the breakdown went to local schools. And the county got 2.8 million. There is a strange earmark for other, I'm not sure what other is. It was 2.1 million. And East Bay Regional Parks gets close to $1 million from us. And our own operating fund from property taxes alone is just 2.3 million. So from that perspective, I want to orient you with the information I got yesterday per Mr. Sessions. Mr. Renix is really from the public services. He is here as a lateral department to report to you what they plan to do. Per Mr. Sessions, their department is going to ask for 16.4 million budget for next year. Now, your department asked for 9.2. The two of you make up 25.6 million. If we judge by the revenue we got last year, you guys, just the two of you, consist of 50% of spending from our revenue. Now, why is that important? Your relationship, to me, I studied business before. You are truly a cash cow. Your programs generate additional revenue that we can, really count on. Their department is more expenditures, cost-bearing, operational cost. So whatever they're doing is really benefiting the quality of life, maintaining our buildings, painting aesthetically, making everyone safe and enjoy, our communities. It's necessary. So then therefore, again, I ask you guys really are the cash cow. You have revenue generating power. So you really need to consider, increasing your services and make sure whatever you do, you need to understand how much of your services are benefiting tax-paying residents like myself and my peers sitting down there, and how many are just benefiting those people who are coming in. And I really resent that in your services, you don't distinguish non-resident and resident fees. You really should. Thank you.
Okay, so we're gonna move to commissioner comments. Brian did such a great job, no comments? Okay, okay.
No, I do. Hey, Brian, really quick, the only comment I have is when I read through this. It would help if we list out how these tie, my feedback would be how these tie into the master plan. So I would put like, hey, somewhere on this, it ties in the master plan, whatever, and what number. So I just think it helps say we're strategically spending towards what's on the master plan as I read through this. So that's really my only feedback to you on that. And so thanks.
Sure. Yeah, we can highlight that next year. In the description sheets, we also likely have ties to that, but we can highlight that.
Some of them did, some of them didn't. So.
Yeah, I've seen over time an increased connection to master plan goals and city council goals. And so I'm seeing more reference to that. So thank you for that, to validate what Commissioner Bree is saying. It is helpful to see that connection. So thank you for doing that.
Take it.
Yes, Commissioner Mitra.
Actually, this question is for Kathy. Just to clarifying, the San Ramon Trail Master Plan 125,000, that is for creating a master plan, not for any actual work, right?
Correct. That is for working with a consultant to do those big community outreach meetings to help us gather data, to do surveying and assist us to get that plan pulled together so that we have actionable items and a timeline and costs and all of those things that will help us budget and plan for the future.
Okay, thanks.
Anybody else? Okay, so thank you, Brian, for all that work. And I was at the budget workshop yesterday. It is heady stuff, but really important that we understand the parks budget as part of a whole budget. It's really important that we don't operate in a vacuum. And so I know it takes a lot of hours for you guys to put that stuff together. So thank you for that. I also wanted to thank whoever put the staff report together for the fund descriptions. I think it's important for us to continue to understand where our money comes from and where that relationship with, the operating budget and the park development fund and all that stuff goes. So that's really important too. And I also appreciate the fact that you guys are mindful of coordinating projects so that they're more cost effective, like where it makes sense. If we're going to be in there and we can be cost effective about coupling things, I think that's a really smart approach. And so I really appreciate that. I would say, grants are a part of our reality. Sponsorships are a part of our reality. And so I would encourage, and I know Kathy and her team are already doing this, but it should be said that we want to really keep our hand on the pulse of what grants are available, because as we know from the budget workshop yesterday, money is getting tighter and tighter, and we're going to have to get more creative on how we fund our projects. And frankly, I think it should also be said, and I believe one of the city council members iterated this yesterday, is that we take for granted that our parks and community services are so top notch, and we read as a community as if we are loaded with money, right? I mean, people just think, well, you've got these great, well-maintained facilities and parks, you must be raking in the sales tax, et cetera, right? And that is just not the case. So kudos to our city that we are fiscally responsible in how we manage our funds. Kudos to Public Works and to park staff that you guys do your jobs in a way that makes our city so wonderfully livable. But I would love for the public to understand that this does not go without a considerable amount of work, that what we achieve as a community with our Parks and Community Services function is really quite a marvel. So I'm really proud of that as a Parks Commissioner. And I think that was basically it for my things. Oh, I did want to ask Kathy. So Kathy, given that we're a little tight, getting tighter all the time on money, what would be, say, the top 2 or 3 projects that you see are getting bumped, CIP projects, since this is the topic, that are getting bumped and bumped and bumped, that you're concerned are kind of being kicked down the road? Are there any that, and if nothing comes to mind, that's okay, but are there any that you feel this body should be aware of and on our radar screen?
Well, honestly, I think you're aware of all of them because of the master plan, because of our discussions on them. And I wouldn't call them being kicked down the road. I'd call them, we're trying to figure out the best way to fund them because they're big projects. So it's
Fair enough.
Crow Canyon Gardens. You know, you all know that. We know that. We need to do that. We've got these other parks that are kind of taken care of because they're coming with the city center. So those are some of the big ones, but really it's about those master plan priorities, pickleball. So we're making inroads in all of them. And this master plan, I think, is another really big one. So I'm happy this year. I think we're making a lot of headway. I think we've made headway on shade structures. So I feel like we are actually in pretty good shape and are getting a plan, and there are some funds coming from developers. So as we move forward, I'm optimistic that we're going to be able to get lots of these things done.
Excellent. Okay, good. Well, good note to end on. Okay, guys, thank you, Brian, and everybody who came to back up. Brian.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Great job.
Thanks for all that.
Becky.
Okay, so we are going to continue with our commission business to item 8.2, and we get to hear from Becky Adams about our Senior Express van update.
Well, good evening. Give me one moment to get out of this presentation and into the next one. All right, so I did put together a couple of slides here. I'll just leave it on the main screen for now, and we'll get into the presentation a little bit further. It's really just some visuals to help those in the audience as well as those who are watching us online, just to see some of the charts and figures that were included in the staff report. So first off, thank you for having me here tonight. I will provide a presentation on the Senior Transportation Program, and this presentation was provided to the Senior Advisory Committee as education and to gather feedback on the Senior Transportation Program. And it was suggested by Chair Kinnison Lee that the same presentation be provided to the commission this evening. The Senior Transportation Program has been in place in the city since, as far as back I can find information, is 2002, but I am fairly certain that it was prior to that time as well, and operating in its current format since 2015. The Senior Transportation Program is not being considered currently for a budget reduction. However, it should be noted that it is a highly subsidized program that we offer. And in order for the Parks and Community Services Department to maintain a department-wide 50% cost recovery, there's other programs in our department that must generate revenue to help offset the cost of this program. And so our goal today is to educate, provide feedback, and answer questions as you will be discussing the department budget later on in the evening, meeting this evening. So with that, I'll jump into the presentation. We'll just leave it on this screen for a bit. I'm going to own it. There's a lot of information on senior transportation. I'm not going to provide it all to you tonight because quite frankly, we just don't have enough time for that. A lot of the information was provided in your into your staff report. And I am very much ingrained in the senior programs. I think all of you know that. I was at the Senior Center for a number of years, helping put together some of the new aspects or the current aspects of our transportation program that we have in place at this point. And so the purpose of our Senior Express van is to provide transportation to and from the El Costa Senior and Community Center, from residents' homes to our center. and is to promote socialization amongst our senior residents. The city places a high priority on providing reasonable and accessible transportation options to our senior residents here in San Ramon. And so the vans that we currently have now is a 7-passenger and a 16-passenger van, both with accessible lifts so that we can accommodate scooters, wheelchairs, any of those sort of assistive devices. We received those vans as part of a 5310 grant in 2013. And at the time that we got the grant in 2013 and prior, we utilized volunteer drivers to provide the service. And during that time, the Parks Commission was very instrumental in hearing from the public that it wasn't as reliable as we needed it to be for our San Ramon residents. And so we were directed to look at getting contract drivers. And so that's what we did. And so in 2015, we initiated an RFQ for contract drivers. And during that RFQ process, we were able to select MV Transportation to provide the drivers for our vans. And so the city owns the vans. We got it through the grants. We contract with drivers to provide the service. They're all Class B drivers. They go through extensive driver training with the company that they work for. We contract with a transportation company to provide the drivers. During in 2020, we all know what happened. The pandemic happened. We had to shut our senior center for 15 months. During that time, our contract with MV Transportation expired. And so when we went to reopen the senior center in 2021, we initiated another RFQ process. And during that RFQ process, we chose Rytrans to provide the transportation services, the drivers for the vans. And as we're going through these RFQ process, we really select the company or the agency that is based on their proposals and how we think they will be able to best offer the service to our residents and what is most advantageous to the city as what they presented in their proposals. And so at this time, we went through the RFQ process, we reopened the senior center, and we're now open and the seniors are starting to come back. Well, when we did the RFQ process, you'll see then your staff report, the cost of the drivers went up substantially while our ridership went down. We are starting to get a lot more of our seniors coming back to our center now, but we just didn't have our seniors who were comfortable in coming back. And so we kind of had this imbalance when we're looking at the cost of the service and, the riders that we had on it. And so as staff does every year, as we're preparing our budget, we take a, hard look at our services. We analyze it. We look at programs, we look at services. What can we do to honestly be good stewards of our public funds? And we had to, as we were looking through this, we had to make a hard decision, and staff recommended suspending Monday service as part of the current fiscal year. So the 22-23 fiscal year. And the reason why we needed to do this and we looked at suspending the Monday service was because that was a day with very low ridership or comparable ridership with some of our other days, but it was a day that we had fewer programs at the senior center. And so it made sense for us to do that because we wanted to get people there when we had even more of those socialization programs for them. And honestly, it also provided continuity of service for Tuesday through Friday. And so it wasn't this weird schedule where, hey, we have a day off in the middle of the week. We're Tuesday to Friday. And it also mirrored the service that we had previously before we added in Monday service. And I believe we added in Monday service in 2016. And so as we saw the service reduction, staff understood that, hey, we're going to have some people who are negatively affected by this. And so we wanted to make sure that we did our due diligence, provide that information to our seniors who are affected. And we're very fortunate in San Ramon that we have our Go San Ramon program, and the vast majority of our seniors who are utilizing the service of the Senior Express van on Mondays was in the service area for Go San Ramon. And so we provided them with information on that. We have all that information available to them at the El Costa Senior and Community Center. We also provided them with resources for the County Connection Paratransit Link program. And then there's also volunteer organizations that's offered through the county, for example, Mobility Matters, that we were able to refer them to so that they could hopefully still come see us at the Senior Center on Mondays. And so as we try to plan ahead for senior transportation needs in San Ramon, we conducted a senior needs assessment, and we did that in 2022. And in that senior needs assessment, we made sure to include 3 questions in there specifically about transportation. And so I have some of those here. And so this is also available in your packet. And so this is one of the questions that was included in the needs assessment. And overwhelmingly, the majority of respondents stated that they do not have a need for transportation services, whether it be Senior Express van or it's from County Connection. The image that's on your screen, that it's almost 90% utilize their personal vehicle when they're coming to the Alcosta Senior and Community Center. And then on the next one, what are your transportation needs in San Ramon? Again, over 80% of our respondents indicated that they don't currently have needs for transportation. They're doing okay on their own. And we had about 400 respondents in this specific needs assessment. However, we did conduct a needs assessment in 2016 when I was over there, and we had over 1,000 respondents, and it did have very similar results as the one that we just did in 2022. And here's the last question specifically for transportation. And again, it's transportation is not needed. And so we felt comfortable with the responses that we got, that we did our due diligence. We have this because we do want to plan for the future as we continue to look at the types of senior services that we want to provide for our community members. And so getting into a little bit more of the nuts and bolts, the numbers and figures here that was included in the staff report as well. And so we'll talk about revenue generation, ridership figures, the cost of the drivers, as well as the program subsidy over the past 5 years. And you'll see that we did not compare full fiscal years, and there was a method to that madness. And it was so that we really wanted to look at the most up-to-date information. And since we just finished Q3 as of March 31st, we thought it would be most advantageous to look at apples to apples from all of the different fiscal years. So these are figures that are from July 1 to March 31st of each of the fiscal years up to just 2 weeks ago. And so here's the ridership comparison for each year. And so you can see in 18-19, that was a very successful year for us, especially on Fridays. That's that figure in blue. That's just a little bit of more than 900 riders. And so then you can see that that was our really good year, 18-19, and then 19-20, the numbers went down, but there was a reason for that. That's when we were very fortunate to be able to remodel the Alcosta Senior and Community Center. And so we partially shut the facility, moved some of our programs up to the Doherty Station Community Center. So naturally we had some fewer programs. Some people didn't want to go out to Doherty Station. And so then that's why you see some of those figures dropping. But then also, again, March 2020 is included in these figures as well. So those March figures were negatively impacted because of the pandemic. And then, of course, 2021, we were closed for 15 months, and that rolled into 21-22. And so you can see those figures are pretty low. And you can see the Monday and Thursday figures were very similar and comparable. And then in the 22-23, this is 4 days. And so those figures does not include Mondays because we suspended that service in 22-23. But you can see, and I do want to point it out, that the ridership is starting to come back, and we are starting to have more and more people participate in our programs at the senior center. Okay. And then some of the revenue generation and the ridership. And so here's our revenue that is specific to our vans. And so for our vans, the cost for the van for a one-way trip from a San Ramon resident's home to the Alcosta Senior and Community Center is $3. If they're an Encore member, then it's $2. And so you can see, again, in our highest ridership year of fiscal year 18-19, for those first 9 months, we're at approximately $7,500. And then the next year we started going down. Again, renovation, pandemic hit. And then last year, July 21 to March 22, minimal $2,000. And then this year you can see we are at, approximately $1,500 more than we were last year. And remind you, this is without Monday service. So this is Tuesday through Friday service. And so that's the money that we bring in on the charges for the riders. And then the next figure that I'll show is the cost for our drivers. And so in 1819 and 1920, that is MV transportation. And so that's the 3641 and the 3801, and this is per hour for the drivers. And then the 2021, again, we did not have any cost for that. And then starting in July 21, this is when we transferred to Ride Trans, and this was based on an RFQ process. It should also be noted that we did have a couple of bids come through during that, and the cost between the two bidders were very comparable. And so we do have this, it's 5563, and it's included in your staff report that come July 1, the cost will increase to, I don't have the figure off the top of my head, but it's $59 and some cents. I believe it's in the staff report, and that was all included in the RFQ process. All right. And so you will see, just looking at our revenue that we went over, the cost of the drivers, what is our subsidy? And so in 1819, we were subsidizing this program at approximately 60%. And then you can see that the numbers have continued to go up to 74% in 1920, 88% in 21-22, and then this year we're at 85%. And so that's the last one there. So I'll just leave that one up on the screen. And so staff understands that senior transportation services are important to the city and its residents. And, you know, staff has been working really hard on collaborating with County Connection Link to provide some enhancements in order to provide more information and services to our San Ramon residents. And so I'm happy to say that on May 17th, 9 to noon, we will have County Connection at our Alcosta Senior and Community Center, and they will host the first mobile lobby at the center. And there will be customer service representatives from County Connection on site, and they'll provide information regarding route information, trip planning, flipper cards, paratransit, regional transit discount cards, and everybody loves a free giveaway. So they'll have that as well. That's really how we'll draw some people in. And then we will continue to host these mobile lobbies on a quarterly basis to ensure that we're providing continued support to our San Ramon residents. Also on May 23rd, so just a week later, from 10 to noon, we will have Link staff. So that's the paratransit staff, and they will be on site to provide an in-depth education session to our folks at the senior center regarding paratransit services that is offered through County Connection. Starting in June of 23, I'm very happy to say that we were able to come to an agreement with County Connection Link staff that previously, if you wanted to apply to get Link service, you had to fill out an application. There had to be an individual assessment, and that was in Martinez. And if you need the service, it can also be prohibitive to get to Martinez. Link would provide transportation on their bus to get up there, but we were able to work with Link staff, and they were very gracious and immediately like, yes, we want to do this. So they're going to be coming down to San Ramon and conducting individual assessments and accepting Link applications on site for our San Ramon residents and also others within our facilities so that they don't have to go up to Central County. And we'll continue to do that on a monthly basis or as needed based on what applications they receive. And so in addition to all of that, staff has also initiated conversations with other entities, including public and private organizations, to provide and this also includes some of our San Ramon senior living facilities, to see how we can possibly collaborate to offer more transportation options to our residents, because a lot of the senior resident facilities have vans, but a lot of them don't have drivers, or some of them don't have drivers. So it's, hey, how can we work together? Because we all have the common goal. So how can we work together to provide this for our community? And so we will continue to work on that throughout the year. We're constantly doing that. And we have a few meetings coming up with some groups in the near future. And so the last bit here is, a logical question is, hey, what are other communities doing? And so to address that, staff did some research on senior van services with some of our nearby communities. And we found that only Walnut Creek is the other city nearby San Ramon who provides a similar service as we do with our Senior Express vans. And so this is with fixed destinations around Walnut Creek. Pleasanton provides a paratransit service via contract provider, that's Black Tie Transportation, for individuals aged 70 and older. And this is partially funded by Measure B and BB in Alameda County. Pleasant Hill utilizes a minivan driven by volunteers, and this is for medical appointments and local destinations on select days for Pleasant Hill seniors. And lastly, Dublin, Danville, and Concord do not provide senior van services to their residents. And so during the upcoming fiscal year, staff will continue to explore the alternative senior transportation models for the San Ramon community members who require transportation within our city. And so hopefully that wasn't too much information. Hopefully that was just right there enough. And so I am happy to answer any questions or comments that you may have.
So Becky, before I go
Yes.
to other folks, so have we reinstated Mondays at all?
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Not yet, but that it is in the proposed budget to reinstate. It has always been the intent of staff. That's why we call it a suspension. It was just until we could bring it back based on budget as well as honestly, the need for it. And so, yes, we are in the proposed budget. It is in
And
there.
for the purpose of guiding our questions and our discussion, my understanding is that the program continues to be in the budget, continues to be funded. Your goal here is to update us and to explore other options where if we have any ideas, or that's something staff will be doing, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Exploring whether this should be retained or whether we should look at other ways to provide senior transportation.
Yep, I'm looking for, answer any questions that I can for you and then get your feedback.
Okay, so let's start with Commissioner Mitra for questions.
Yep. Becky, great presentation. And I'm glad that you guys did this survey. And it's a great data to start with. I have a couple of clarifying questions. So you said the ride was going down, right? I mean, we see that data on that. Did we ever try to find out why that was going down? I'm talking about pre-pandemic. Pandemic was a big thing. And I know in Al Costa Center was under renovation. So there was a reason for that. Is there any other reason that all of a sudden it was going down?
No, prior to where you see those figures, prior to the renovation of the center, we were on par. We were right on course, matching what we had the previous year. And so what we see is that the reason why the numbers dipped in 1920 was because we had reduced programming and because we were out at Doherty Station Community Center because of the renovation to our facility. And then, of course, we do our grand opening in December. We're all excited. Everyone wants to come back. It was a wonderful grand opening. And then come February, people started to get scared. And so February is when we started to see those numbers start to go down. And then 2 weeks, not even into March, is when we were forced to shut down.
Yeah. And also you said that 80% of them prefer personal vehicles, personal riders. And did I hear correctly that in 2016, when you did one previous, and we get a similar kind of response?
Yes, we did.
It's similar kind of responses.
Yes.
Okay. So there was no change pre or post?
Nothing to speak of.
Nothing with show. Okay. The chart you showed that van rideship comparison to the 22-23, how many months we are talking about here?
We're talking 9 months. So it's July of 1 year to March of the following year.
So this is the 9-month data, not full
Correct.
12 months data.
Correct.
So this will go up.
Yeah, it will go up, but I just want, since we've only completed 9 months of the current fiscal year, I just wanted to make sure that the figures weren't skewed. So I wanted to make sure that we were comparing apples to apples across all the 5 years.
Okay. So this data that you showed is not a projected data, it's actual data.
This is
but
real-time
it's
data
only
as
for
of
9
March
months.
31st. You're exactly right.
A couple of more questions is looking at the cost for daily rideship on that, drivers' hourly rates between 21, I mean, when we renew the contract with that, it went up 46%.
Yes. Yeah, and so this was through the RFQ process. So
Right.
it's based on the bids that we received, and we did receive multiple bids and they were comparable. And so we can guess on what some of those reasons were. I mean, this was right after the height, well, we were still in the height of the pandemic at that time, right? And so the cost of personnel was more, the cost of maintaining, just everything was more. And so we saw that, you know, transfer to us for the services.
I can tell you, having managed the traffic bus program, that even in non-pandemic situation, it's hard to find drivers. It is a nationwide phenomenon. So I can only imagine how difficult it would be for them to find folks in the pandemic.
Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay, the last one. I think this is what you wanted to do is present it,
Mhm.
not come up with a solution. So you're not coming up said, okay, this is based on this data, this is what we are changing, or this is the thinking. It's not that. This presentation is that this is data you got, here you go.
Yes,
Then
it's
started
informational.
discussions, right?
Absolutely. It's informational. And then if you have any questions, it's really to educate
Right,
you.
right.
Because I mean, this is a really important program that we offer in our community and in our department. So we want to make sure that we bring this update to you, let you know what's going on, some of the trends that we see. And then if you have any feedback for us, we're able to, you know, take that into consideration as we go forward or just answer some questions for you.
Just one follow-up, final question is, I know you are already talking about a lot of other county connection link and other things. Do you think with that, if those things work out, people start using them, our cost will go down? Or is that the final intent?
That's a hard question to answer. People trust us.
Mhm.
They know the city. They know us at the senior center. They know our staff. And so I don't see our cost going down. I do see our ridership going up because it's not necessarily equitable or relatable that, you know, if you have 16 van passengers, that your costs are going to go up as compared if you only had 10 van passengers, because it really depends on where they live in the city. And so if you have, you know, all 10 people who live within a 2-block radius of one another, well, you can pick all 10 of them up real quick and really reduce your cost. But if you have, you know, half of the people over in the Doherty Valley, and then you have other people who are here in South San Ramon, and then some who live off of Crow Canyon, well, it's going to become a larger route. And so when you have a larger area to cover within the city, that's where our costs go up. And so we could have 16 people on a van, and it could cost the same as having 5 people on the van.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Vice Chair Dorlick.
Thank you.
That's you.
So just to follow up on that last comment, so it's on an hourly basis, not on a project basis or a program basis?
That's correct. It is an hourly
Okay.
basis.
So the distance does matter. Didn't we have a program with some rideshare services at one time? And has that been explored as a possible, cost reduction?
Yeah, so we still do have the Go San Ramon program. Lisa Babadia and I were able to put that together with County Connection several years ago. And so that is still an option. It's not available to all of San Ramon. It's really where route, I always get the number mixed up, 35 was
Right.
discontinued along San Ramon Valley Boulevard, and then a certain distance from where that route was, because we have a very successful fixed route service that goes Bollinger out to Doherty Valley. And so we need to make sure that we are not pulling people from our fixed route service and putting them into a vehicle, because that somewhat defeats the purpose of some of our fixed routes. And so we need to do our due diligence, and we continue to do that, of educating our population, especially our senior population, as it relates to utilizing car shares. And so we just know that some of our seniors just aren't comfortable with that quite yet. And so we are exploring some of those. We're looking to work with, which it's very preliminary, so I'm not saying this is going to happen, but we are looking at seeing if there's a possibility, for example, of us creating a partnership with GoGo Grandparent, where they can, if you don't know how to use your smartphone to request a ride, you can call it in. They also have translation services. They also are able to, with the information that they've provided to me, they also have staff who work 24/7. And so they're able to monitor rides that are initiated through their service. So for example, if my mom requests a ride through GoGo Grandparent, she's not comfortable with all of the technology, there's somebody at GoGo Grandparent who can monitor that route and that trip to say, oh, okay, she has made, if something was to happen, I'm like, where did my mom go? They're like, oh, it's right here. So it gives that little bit of sense of security. And so that is something that we want to try to make sure that we are addressing so that we can help educate our community and let them know it is safe. We are doing all of these. And so that's something we're in the very, very early stages of exploring that partnership.
Okay, and so the hourly rate of the driver is our only cost because we own and maintain the van? Or is there an additional loaded cost on over and above the hourly rate?
So the hourly rate, so thank you for bringing that up. And so the cost that I have on here, that is just for the drivers. And so that does not include maintenance on the vehicle. It also does not include fuel for the vehicles.
But that's the city cost, not the
For the contractor?
the contracted cost.
Correct. Yes, that is the money that we write a check for the contractor. And then the cost of maintenance and the cost of the fuel is incorporated into the city's operating budget.
So do we have a loaded, kind of a full hourly cost based upon the fuel, depreciation, maintenance, and the hourly cost?
I could get that for you. I don't have it this evening, though.
Because it's probably going to be close to $100. Or would it be a little less? Just.
Yeah, if that's probably a ballpark. I'm not saying what size ballpark,
All right.
but yeah. I'm a sports person too, so it could be a Major League Baseball stadium or it could be a Little League field. Absolutely, it's a ballpark.
So even if we say, your hourly rate for the van is $30 with fuel, maintenance, et cetera. I mean, that, we're approaching $90 an hour.
I think that would probably be fair.
A lot of rideshare costs are less.
Mhm.
So, I mean, we don't want to cannibalize the fixed route.
Right.
But if there are cost savings that get below that fixed cost, then maybe we should explore that and see if we can have some partnerships with, Lyft, Uber, other ones that are more specific, perhaps, senior citizens, because that cost, when you don't have the cost of the maintenance of the vehicle and et cetera, could be, more effective.
Absolutely. And that is a portion of GoGo grandparents' work. To my knowledge right now, based on the information that GoGo grandparent has provided to us thus far, Uber and Lyft do not have the ability at this point right now, so April 12th, to do this, to where we can say, hey, I have 5 people that need to be picked up. Can you go get them? However, I am being told that they are going to be able to do that at some point in the near-ish future. And so, yes, that could be one of those things that we explore.
Doesn't seem like a large software, for that. And I could even, if you have scheduled pickup with people on a regular basis and it's coordinated by staff at the community center, then that eliminates the technology phobia element.
Yeah, and that was when we had our initial discussion with GoGo. That was one of the primary questions that we had is, do you have this ability? Because we came to the same conclusion as you, is this would be a heck of a lot cheaper to do it in a different manner. And that's why we're exploring all the different options. We're not set in stone with, this is the way it's always been done. This is how we're going to continue to do it. We're absolutely ready and willing to look at different options.
Well, let's include Lyft and Uber apps on the next senior tech day with the teen council.
And they have done those. So yes, we will continue to do that. Yes. When we launched launched Go San Ramon, we actually did one specifically for that app at Valley Vista Senior Housing. That's right next to the Forest and Farms Historic Park.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Lopez Lutfi.
Thank you for a great report, and it's a lot of information to undertake, but I was just wondering, working with things and other organizations, that getting people to come back at this time is really a problem because they're still afraid to get with. So that's probably part of our reason that we haven't seen a real growth there, because they're still afraid to come. But I just kind of have like a personal question on this link, so that we could have some people that are very, I have one person that just lost her son who lived with her. She's 95, so she wants to live alone. But she comes a couple of times. She's got a ride, but pretty soon she won't. So she could go to the link here and sign up, and they could get that all taken care of so that she could get to the senior center for meals and that type of thing. That's what that would be for.
Yes, that is a possibility. So with County Connection Link, there is an application that must be completed and then an assessment must be done. And so it's not like our Senior Express fan where I say, hey, Becky, can you pick me up on this? And I put you on the list. I'm like, hey, see you tomorrow. You have to apply for it, be accepted, do the assessment, and then they will put you on, their route, and then they'll be able to do that for you. So yes.
Because a lot of these people, I know at 95, she's still fairly good on a computer, on her phone, but she does have trouble with it. But it's comes with age. The people that are 90 years old, they've never done this before. So I think you're doing a great job. And so I was really interested in this because somebody has to help her, that she doesn't have transportation anyplace because she doesn't drive. Thank you, Kevin's.
Well, if she lives in San Ramon, put her on our Express fan. We want to come and pick her up.
So that we could do that.
Absolutely. If she lives in San Ramon,
Yeah.
in city of San Ramon, absolutely. Have her call the senior center. They'll be able to get all of her information. We'll put her on the list and we'll pick her up in the morning. We'll take her home in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping. So, okay, but thank you, because this information gives a lot of knowledge of when you're helping people that are older. So
Did you have any more clarifying questions?
no, I think she's answered all my questions because of the cost is substantial. That's a real concern. Yeah, but thank you.
Commissioner Osland? Thank you, Becky. Curious if you could share with us how the promotion is going to take place to get the word out that these two events are taking place in May
Yeah.
17th and then May 23rd.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up. And so we are currently working on the Senior Encore newsletter. And so this information will be included in that, which is available in all of our city facilities, including the libraries, city hall, community centers. We also mail that out directly to our Encore members. We will do social media posts. We will make sure that that gets out into all of our city email blasts. And so we will do an extensive outreach to make sure that all members of our community are aware of these, because they're not just for seniors. I mean, I'm across the country from my mom, and I'm looking at things constantly for her. And so we want everyone to be able to know and be able to come and get that information that may be pertinent to them and their loved ones.
Great. And will Link and Contra Costa County Connection help with some of this promotion as well?
Absolutely, yes. Yep.
Good question. Commissioner Ellicott Pesic. Yeah. We like to announce your comments.
Yeah. Some of my questions have been partially addressed, but I want to circle back on them and just take a step back. I want to understand fundamentally the service.
Sure.
So we pay them on an hourly rate.
Yes.
There are two buses.
Yes.
On a given day, on a Tuesday, what is the work schedule for those two drivers? Are they?
So generally speaking, we run one van at a time. Depending on our ridership that day, will determine if we take it, we lovingly call them uniquely as well, the big van and the small van. And so depending on the ridership, we'll take one of those vans. And so the drivers from Rytrans, they will arrive up Amador Rancho Community Center. That's where we have our vans housed. And they will get there by about 8:15. They have their manifest, because we provide that to Rytrans personnel the night before. And then they have their manifest, they are in the van, they do their pre-trip inspection, do all that. They are on the road at 8:30 to start the pickup route. And the route that Rytrans personnel runs is the most efficient. And so starting at Amador Rancho, they generally start in the Doherty Valley, closer to Windermere Ranch Middle School. And then they usually do a counterclockwise route around San Ramon. So they would go from, southeast corner up north around, and then they will end on the south end of town where the senior center is located. And so depending on the ridership, it will take usually about an hour to an hour and a half. If we have a lot of people, it could take closer to 2 hours, just based on the need to get around the city, but we are working on trying to reduce that time as much as possible. And so we're probably averaging, I would estimate approximately an hour and a half right now.
So the first person that gets picked up could be on the bus for 2 hours before they arrive at the community center.
Potentially.
So
That is
let's,
very rare, though.
okay,
Yeah.
so they arrive, the driver leaves around 8:30, starts picking up, deposits 9:30, 10 o'clock at the community center. Then what
Yes.
happens with the bus and the driver?
And so then we only pay, thank you for bringing this is a very valid point. So thank you. We only pay for the time that the van is in service for the hourly driver rate. And so if it take from the time that the driver gets to Amador Rancho in the morning at 8:15, the clock starts at that point. And then they do their route. And if it takes them 2 hours, then at 10:15, they're done with their route. They take the van back up to Amador, or sometimes they'll leave it at the senior center. The clock stops. And then Trans doesn't charge us for the time between that their drivers are not actively driving. And then when they start again, pickup is depending on the day between 1 and 3:15. At that time, when they pick up the van about 10 to 15 minutes before the take home route begins, the clock starts again and finishes when they exit the vehicle at Amador Rancho.
So essentially, this is a once a day service, and this is just clarifying, it's a once a day service, pick up, drop off, they're there for half a day
Mhm.
and they go back. And
Yes.
so you guys tend to probably schedule activities to some degree in the time frame they would be at the community center. I would assume, given that there's a span of time at which time they would arrive, maybe the activities don't start till 10 o'clock or 10:30 because given that it could be a long drive on a given day or not. Like,
Yeah, so, excuse me, so going back to the results from that survey, most individuals who come to the senior center don't use our van. And so we have programs that start at 9 o'clock, 8:30. Thank you. Kathy is our senior center expert here. I'm a few years removed now. And so we do have programs that start as early as 8:30, and then they generally start about every hour after that or on the half hour. But yes, we have fewer programs at 8:30, and between like 10 and 1 is the bulk of our programs, with the highlight of our day being the congregate meal service at noon.
okay. And to some degree that I'm sure that you guys are tailoring that to some degree based on
Yes.
demand, et cetera. So
Yes.
the ride service is not an on-demand, it's a communal. It's scheduled every day, Monday through Thursday, approximately departing the community center around 8:15, 8:30.
Yeah, we're Tuesday through Friday.
I'm sorry, Tuesday through Friday. Yeah, sorry. I knew that sounded wrong. Okay. That's helpful. And that was one of my questions about whether we pay for standby hours. And then I guess my other question is, well, I have a few, but related to that is, how challenging is it do we have issues with having enough drivers to actually, I don't know what they're doing in between and how they're employed and whatever, but there's enough drivers that we don't have a problem with having the driver return or show up, et cetera.
Right. The beauty of us contracting the service is that that's their problem. And so, not to pass the buck or anything, but that was part of the reason why we went to the contract drivers back in 2015, is because we didn't have reliable service, because we were relying on the volunteers' schedule. And if they're like, you know what, I'm sleeping today, we didn't have a driver. And so, we have not had an issue with Trans providing us with a driver. And so we are, each company right now, like Chair Kinnison Lee was mentioning, is that, finding drivers can be difficult.
Yeah.
And so we are having some different drivers. Trans is trying to ramp up their drivers even more. And they are specifically trying to hire a driver that would be dedicated to San Ramon. We were very fortunate that we had somebody who was a volunteer driver who then got hired on with MV Transportation and then got hired on with Trans. So we were incredibly fortunate for a number of years, but unfortunately, he's unable to continue to drive for them. And so we are experiencing some of those difficulties with drivers, but we have not had to cancel any service, and that is the primary goal.
Okay. And then how how do people go about signing up? What kind of notice do they, are they typically every Tuesday kind of people, or do they sign up the day before? Like, how do you judge that and know whether the big van, the little van, oh my gosh, we have huge demand, we need 2 drivers and 2 vans?
Yeah, it's kind of a mixed bag. And so we have our regulars. And so we know that certain people, they're going to come 4 days a week, or they're only going to come Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so we are very fortunate with incredible staff at the senior center, led by Kathy Schiller, who is our front desk personnel there. And she knows everything about everybody, and she knows what their needs are. So she signs them up. Really, though, to answer more of your question is that individuals can sign up as late as about noon to 2 o'clock the day before, the business day before. We'll put them on the list. We'll send that list over to Ride Trends. They'll create the manifest, and we have it in our inbox when we show up the next business day.
Okay, so one of my questions on the trend for post-COVID participation, and obviously we're ramping back up.
Yes.
How do the trends compare for the center usage itself versus the bus ridership? Are we seeing that the bus ridership is on a more flat or downward or more low curve compared to the returning to the center?
Sure.
Or are they kind of the same?
I think they're on similar trajectories. And so in February, I believe it was just like all of a sudden, people started coming back. We don't know what happened, if people just started becoming more comfortable. And so, yeah, our participation in programs have started increasing. Our rides for the vans have started increasing. And so that we are seeing, as Commissioner Dorlick mentioned earlier, if we get more riders, how does that relate to our drivers? Or I believe it was maybe Commissioner Mitra. And it's really, we're starting to see that. So our costs for the drivers for the rides are starting to go up for the drivers, because we are getting more people on there. And if we have more than 16 people, for example, who signed up for the van, which is the most that we can put on our large van, we have to do 2 routes.
Right. And then
Because we don't have the flexibility of a second driver.
So are we doing any surveys with respect to the center and the bus usage to find out what people's concerns are, what they would want to see changed in order to participate more, assuming we want to
participate more specifically in the van service?
Yeah.
So I think the data from the needs assessment really tells us that they just don't have the need right now, and this is something that we're working on a senior business plan. And so this will be a portion of it, so that we can project our needs and trends for the next 5 years that we will update on an annual basis also. And so right now, we just don't have the population according to the data that we have been able to receive. And we had senior advisory committees who went out to some of those senior living facilities, who they were out at the community center. They went out and they did outreach to try to hear from people that we may not traditionally hear from. And that was still the information that we were provided. And it was still very similar to the needs assessment that was conducted in 2016, is that we just don't have that need quite yet on a larger scale in our population.
And I guess my final question is, with respect to these 2 upcoming events and in general, and I'm thinking about the Doherty Valley in particular, we have huge immigrant population. We have huge, either English as a second language or no English. How do we, obviously you send out newsletters and you have the Encore and all that, but are you reaching out to some of these maybe community groups that may be more in touch with their local immigrant or non-English speaking grandparents and communities, to make sure that they're aware of the center as well as the bus service, et cetera?
So we do our very best with that. And so we do know some key players in those communities, and we absolutely leverage those relationships. And while I unfortunately don't speak a second language, I'm trying to learn Japanese, but we do know some of the seniors at our communities, at our senior center, who do speak another language, and we certainly, utilize them as a resource to say, hey, can you help us with this? And reach out to some of those community partners to say, hey, can you disseminate this information? We do have our Go Center Moan pamphlet that County Connection produces. We do provide that in multiple languages. And so we are, kind of toe in the water. But, as with a lot of things, we can always do better. And I think that is a long-term goal that we would be able to enhance that outreach.
Yeah, and you know, connecting with some of the community leaders that work, and I'm thinking of like people like Andy Lee that are, you know, involved in that. The APAC, APAC, and then next door, I assume we use quite a bit.
Yes.
Yeah, because I know there's a lot of families that do have the grandparents and they may be stuck home during the day until the kids, because they are often taking care of the kids in the afternoon. So,
And we do have a very active and supportive community on Nextdoor for our Alcosta Senior Community Center and our services with Parks and Community Services. And so they're our best advocate also.
yeah, thank you so much.
You're
It was
welcome.
really helpful.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All right, let's go to public comment.
Okay, our first public comment is from Ravi Punjabi.
Hi.
Hello, good evening, commissioners. Thank you for your time. I, by way of background, my name is Ravi Punjabi. I'm a pain management physician practicing in Castro Valley. I used to practice in San Ramon, but with COVID, we had to shut down. But I plan on coming back. I've lived in San Ramon for over 25 years. Now, with this transportation service, my father is 88 years old. He uses a cane. The gate of my home, my property, is within San Ramon city limit. My front door is outside of San Ramon city limit, unfortunately. So he was told that he can that we can no longer pick him up and drop him door to door. Now he is in the 2017 timeframe. To back up, he's been using this service since 2012 now for 11 years. This is his only social outing during COVID, when he wasn't going anywhere. He was isolated, depressed, and he looks forward to this every single day. So I'm here to advocate for him. After listening to all the fiscal responsibility, I kind of feel guilty advocating for him, but here I am. So in 2017, we were temporarily not able to have the van come up, and he tried walking up and down, and one time he fell down and on his face, smashed his face, broke some teeth, had to be taken to the emergency room. So dropping him off at the gate is a safety issue for him. For me, I would not certainly want anybody's parent to have to face that, because we may not be able to pick him up and take him up, immediately when he is there. My home is 200 feet away from the gate, literally. So I understand cost, but I don't think it adds a significant amount of cost to drive another 200 feet to pick him up from my door. If it was a significant distance, I'm being told that all of unincorporated San Ramon is not going to be included in picking up seniors any longer. But if it was a significant amount of distance, I would not be here advocating for him. But given the unique circumstance that we live about 200 feet away from where he can be picked up, I'm hoping you'll all consider him as an exceptional case and continue to make an allowance for him to be picked up for safety and efficiency reasons from door to door. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Any more public comment?
Yes. Sorry, I'm doing the timer. Yes, Taiwan is a country. It's got the next public comment.
Hello, commissioners. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Adams and Mr. Cox, who are in charge of our senior center. Strike me as, just exemplary staff. Whenever I visited that center or attended their meetings, they strike me as very sincere, and whatever they say, I can really take their face value 100%. And from the presentation, I was able to understand a lot. So thank you so much for the detailed presentation. What I understood is that, first of all, senior freedom of movement should be a priority and should be a cherished value for advanced civilization. And I would pride our country to be one of the advanced civilizations. Furthermore, because of what Ms. Adams shared with us, we currently own the van. We currently have a contract of the drivers. Both really need us to continue with this program, or we're really losing money. So with those put in perspective from my business background, if this was my business, I would recommend that we continue with our service for the seniors. But there are some things we need to tweak. I see a lot of waste in duplicate efforts between governments. I've been going to county meetings. They are currently actively looking into senior mobility as well. I see that there are some opportunities and funds that we can possibly streamline or piggyback with the county, and therefore we can run this service a little bit more effectively and even more efficiently. I would recommend, if it's possible, I don't understand, of course, the ordinances and regulations and all that. So given what I have, picked up from the public meetings and from a business perspective, I would recommend that just to recover the subsidy, which from the driver subsidy is not very much. It's not even $20,000. That is something I'm willing to pay for. So from that perspective, if we can open it up to maybe even weekends, and Ms. Hyman just said that Mayor Clarkson's van tour is a sold out event. So that means people actually will ride vans, for something that are enjoyable. So I would recommend that you look into possibly opening up Saturday for all ages to do cost recovery, because we will be able to charge that. And then we can fill the hole that is given, on a weekday. And I think that's all the time I have, but I think you get the gist of it. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more public comment on this item?
No, that's it.
Okay, so commissioner comments. We asked a lot of questions, which I think shows there's a lot of interest in this topic. Commissioner Elcott Pesic.
Thank you. I just want to say, after spending time getting involved in the last few years in the city and leadership and, the master plan and our goals, I really, really appreciate the emphasis the staff and the city are putting in taking care of our seniors and making sure, I'm a parent of younger, now teenage kids, and that's often my focus, but we do have an aging community. And I think a sign of a healthy community is taking care of everybody from, cradle on. So I really appreciate that we're doing this. I appreciate that it isn't all about always the money, but, people pay taxes, they invest in the community. And I think it's really great that we continue to invest in them and finding opportunities to keep our aging population healthy and active and connected. And I think that benefits all of our community, not just our seniors. So I think we should continue to look at, how we can creatively, innovatively, thoughtfully keep this fiscally responsible as much as possible. But I really don't see that this is the highest priority in cost recovery because it's an important part of our community and who we are as a community. I'm looking forward to hearing how some of these other services might be useful. But when I think about Lyft and Uber, I just don't see how it beats what we have, assuming that the vehicles stay in good service condition. We're not investing a ton of money into vehicles and the way you guys have said it. So I would really encourage us to continue to prioritize this and make this available to our seniors. I'm curious about, have we changed our policy with respect to who is eligible to be picked up outside of strict city limits? Did that recently change? What was the cause of the change? Not to say that it shouldn't be, but I just don't know what the history of that is.
Yeah, honestly, when we started to really dig into it to look at it, because we got some pushback on our Monday that we had just done that. So staff really dug in and looked at all of the data and realized that we were picking up outside of the city limits. And that we, the people that are outside the city limits do not pay taxes.
Mhm.
And so it's a little bit unfair too, because if I'll pick one person up outside the city limits, then I should pick up
All of them.
all of them. And so after analyzing that and looking at it, we felt that it was best to come back to our boundaries. And so that is why we have made that move. I am so I feel strongly, I think as all of our staff do, that Shaw, the senior that Robbie spoke about, is an important member of the senior community. We want him to come to the senior center, but we'd really like to try and find an alternative method to get him there, because it is difficult with being outside. The property, the city limit line is on Bollinger.
And that's, I guess, part of what I start thinking about is when we make exceptions, where's the line, the slippery slope? Is there a rational basis to grandfather in? But if there's a significant number of people that would be affected, we don't solve the problem. And so, I appreciate that you've thought about that, and hopefully there's a solution. And I wonder if, there are opportunities to reach out. I think it's unincorporated San Ramon. Is that the issue?
It also affects North Canyon Estates.
So it's not like we could partner with the city of Dublin to help solve this problem, because it's not theirs either. All right. Well, I appreciate us being thoughtful about that. And obviously we have to prioritize our tax-paying community, but and I totally appreciate and support the idea that if we can look for partnerships, economies of scale, opportunities with other government or county agencies to try and support the senior population. And maybe we are going to be at the leading edge of this with Walnut Creek, and maybe partnering and encouraging other communities to support this. We can find a way to fill the gaps. But again, I think this is really great. If there's things that we can do to approve it, I wonder, I think it's great that we charge next to nothing. But I also, part of my question is, is that the right price point? Who would that eliminate? If we charged a little bit more? We do live in a fairly affluent community. We don't want to leave anyone behind. If it is possible in surveying the data that we could charge a little bit more in order to allow us to continue and potentially expand the opportunity, maybe running 2 buses and making it economical. If we do go that route, is there, we could potentially build in an opportunity for subsidy for those that actually need it, however you go about evaluating that. But it looks like it's $1 or $2.
It's $3 for San Ramon residents, $2 if you're an Encore member. And in the proposed budget that we have, it does have a $1 increase associated with it. It's minimal, but
It's minimal. But I think that's something that could be sold. There could be, some opportunity for fundraising in order to subsidize those that needed it. But it seems like, I don't know what the price point, I'm sure you guys are on it, but I'd rather see us go up a little incrementally when this is such a low amount compared to the cost of an Uber or any other service, or, and the peace of mind that it gives to the younger generation whose parents need this service to have that, as long as we make sure nobody's left behind for it. So, sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Kennison Lee. Hey, Becky, nice job tonight on your presentation. That was really good. So, couple points. First of all, thanks for taking the sensitivity you are on this subject, because I know obviously it's super sensitive on one of the largest portions of our population from an age standpoint in the city. So, feedback. First, I'm with Commissioner Dorlick. Hey, I think it's important that we're being good stewards of our money, and we're trying to find third options or third way to be, how do we possibly could provide better service, right? Or how do we, possibly be good stewards of money? So rideshare was one thing I wrote down. It's actually, the other thing is, is there a voucher way? And, so I'd like to go go grandparents, sorry, grandparents, sorry, Becky. I wrote it down. I just have my glasses on. But anyways, is there a way that we can make it easy to go execute that and maybe serve a water portion, right? So, and then my third option or my other thing to think is I wrote down wait time. So we should, you don't need to answer the question, but what is a wait time? And as we look at services, can we leverage a better wait time for and drop off to the senior center as another service? And I also like the idea of looking outside to see if there's any underutilized assets, like you said, at senior centers. And I like that as a third option. So I think it's really clear that we're not trying to eliminate, but we're trying to better serve and get a better return on our investment. And how do we provide a better service? And I'm glad you're doing it that way. So those are my feedback in the digital comments. So thanks, Becky.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. So just a couple things from me. So I also wanted to thank you, Becky, because I often gauge the genuineness and the sincerity of a speaker by how they present. And you can see when somebody's speaking from their heart. We know you're still a fixture over at the senior center. And I sense that sincerity of you are looking out for the seniors. So I feel good about you being involved with that process.
Well,
So thank you. I absolutely love the fact that we are getting transportation resource hubs to our senior center. That is fantastic. That is doing your job. That is amazing. So that is great. Let's keep that up. I think the reality is that we are all really sensitive to the isolation of seniors, because even when we're not dealing with a COVID situation, seniors, by virtue of their mobility issues and a myriad of issues, they tend to get isolated. And that makes these kinds of programs, hopefully as cost effective as you can make them, it makes getting them to places so important. And the reality is that we're going to have, I would venture to guess, more seniors, well, certainly some seniors probably coming into the new, 100% affordable housing complex coming in on Acosta. We've got a city core that's being developed. We're going to see more seniors. So the demand, and I would imagine the comfort level, is going to increase. So I think the need's going to be there. And we want to make sure that our seniors are not being isolated. I wanted to validate your point about comfort level of seniors. Seniors like routine. They like familiarity. I mean, I don't, in my experience with the seniors in my life, I think that's a valid point. And we need to evaluate, as we look at other options, we need to really talk to our seniors and say, would you be comfortable enough utilizing it? So that was an important point that you made. As for the resident, non-resident thing, that's a sticky wicket. That's a tough one. However, I wouldn't, with all due respect, and I know that, I'm putting myself in Mr. Ravi's position of what would I want to think of doing as a daughter, but I would never want to have to say to a San Ramon resident, we don't have the resources to serve you because we're serving a resident outside of our area. So maybe partnerships are a solution. I don't know, but I think it's something that we really need to dig into and figure out if we can come up with a solution. But I do think whenever you are implementing city policies or programs, consistency is always an important tenet of how you implement programs. It just is, because it makes it enforceable. It makes it fair. And I feel like there is a valid point that the folks who are paying taxes that go to the program should be the ones who benefit to a great extent, right? So that's a tough one, and I'll be interested to hear what staff thinks about that. The other things I want to say quickly are really along the lines of the I wonders. I love it when people in city council and planning and parks say, I wonder, because sometimes our reaction to things is really an I wonder, just to help us think about it. So I wonder about, well, actually, I'm going to back. I'm going to say the other communities thing. I'm with Commissioner Ellicott Pesic. I hope that was you who said it. I'm not always moved by all the other communities don't do it. I'm moved by, should we be doing it? Are we, on the cutting edge? Is this something that we should be doing as a community, regardless of Dublin's not doing it or whomever? So I just wanted to put that out there. I wonder if, as we look at the shared cost ratio, if we need to look at, do we need to look at qualifications, like financial qualifications? Like if that's ever going to be part of the formula, is what can that person afford? I know it adds an extra layer of bureaucracy, if you will, but if we have limited resources, we want to make sure those services are going to folks that need them financially and in every way. Just, I don't know if that's the answer. I'm just throwing it out there. I wonder if we are, we obviously paid attention to the grant opportunity to get the vans in the first place. Are there other grants that would help us run the operation? That would be something just to keep our eyes out for. And aside from that, I think, is there something else? Let's see. I think that's it. So the other I wonder, I guess, was I do wonder if the costs that we're investing in, Commissioner Dorlick did talk about the true cost, right, versus just the driver cost, if that could be applied in a different way to give us more bandwidth and so forth. So those are things I'm wondering about. But I think what you're looking for from us are sort of what the I wonder questions and the little prompts that will help our next level research, right? And so the other thing I wonder, the final thing I wonder is, I don't see anything in here about what our senior advisory committee said about this. I don't see the feedback in the staff report. So when you will undoubtedly come back to us with potential solutions, I want to know what the senior advisory committee has to say. And I know that they're happy to provide their feedback. So that would be a great addition to our overall look of the picture.
And from the meeting that we had previously with Senior Advisory Committee, they had similar questions such as you. We were really just providing them with an update as well.
Yeah.
And then I do want to just address one item that you said, Chair Kinstonley, is that, you know, here in Parks and Community Services with transportation, we're not going it alone. We are engaging with our Transportation Division Manager, Chris Weeks, to make sure that we are really tapping into those resources. And so we are under no delusion that we are the experts on everything. And so we really want to reach out to those other departments who have more resources, have more knowledge, and so that we can try to do that together. And because we're all one together in the city.
But thank you for bringing it to our attention. I think it's important for us to think about and to work on. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think we're good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Important topic for sure. Okay, so we're going to move along to 8.3, review of the 2023 significant accomplishments, the 23-24 major action plans, and the I can't speak tonight. The proposed 23-24 budget, correct? And that's going to be May. Let me look at my phonetic spelling of your name. Gosh, sure. Say it again. Malinek. I will memorize this. Okay, and then Kathy, you're going to be backing up with any other information.
Yeah.
You're going to introduce?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, I am, but May's going to pull the PowerPoint up and all those some such things.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm going to go kind of quickly because I know it's getting late and we've still got some things to do. This is kind of the big broad brush overview. I'm asking you to look at this from 50,000 feet up. Because that's really where your role is, and that's where your feedback comes in. We did have the first budget workshop yesterday already, with the city council. So they have seen some of the first pieces of the budget as well. And then this process continues through the city council. So I think you're already pretty well aware of our significant accomplishments because we've talked about them. But I'm going to, like I said, go super fast. And then let's get into the meat of this, which are some of the other numbers. So some of the big things that the department have accomplished, the collaboration with Public Services on the pickleball court renovation. We're pretty excited about that. We initiated the collaboration you just heard about with the county for Lincoln Paratransit. We've increased daily attendance average for the senior lunch program since the pandemic from 4 to 20 people. We've collaborated with Public Services and the Historic Foundation to renovate the organic garden at Forest Home Farms. Really big and exciting projects we did this year. We participated in the Tri-Valley Temporary Public Art Project. Picture this. We developed a plan to rebrand the Doherty Station Community Center with an arts focus. Exciting. Hosted the Arts Summit. I know some of you were there to gather feedback and to put together our 5-year cultural plan. We planned and implemented the 2022 Art and Wind Festival to include that expanded footprint last year and new attributes, our Veterans Art exhibit and our special pulled apart separate Memorial Day program. We collaborated with Public Works and local businesses to bring back our tree lighting. that all happened last year. Sometimes when I read these things, I'm like, I don't know how we got this all done. We
And in
activated.
the rain.
We
that's right.
activated Crow Canyon Gardens by offering Nature Day Camp and sponsoring community cleanup days to improve the overall condition of the demonstration garden. And as a total side note, our new nature coordinator started on Monday. So
Yay.
she'll get introduced to you in a future meeting. We developed the sports field sponsorship program to help build community partnerships. And we've implemented new facility rental software, the Planning Pod, which allows our building attendants to walk around with an iPad with renters to do layouts and do paperwork.
Nice.
So all to make it much simpler. And that's not everything the department has done, but those are some of the big ones that we include for the city council. Oh, I still have more. How did I get there? Expanded group picnic rental locations from 8 to 9. We expanded resident no-fee tennis court reservations. We work collaboratively with the Open Space Advisory Committee to offer guided hikes and that really cool nature photography events. We increased participation by 94% in our youth and teen badminton from 223 participants to 432. Which is kind of exciting because we've been talking a lot about teens. We partnered, I had that wrong in the other report, so I fixed it here. We partnered with the Dublin Santa Rosa Women's Club and other Tri-Valley cities to provide the Tri-Valley Teen Job Fair with over 400 participants. We've engaged the Teen Council and teen community by conducting a teen program survey to address future needs. And we've expanded this teen service and leadership program, which provides opportunities to build leadership skills and gain experience in the department for future employment. That's the program that won the CPAS award. Yeah, so again, just a few of our really big things that we did. But maybe the more interesting when we're talking about budget is what are we going to do next, right? What's on our radar? What are we moving towards? And again, this is a snapshot of some of the goals we have. It's not the entire list. If I gave you the entire list, we asked the staff what they want to accomplish and pages and pages and pages of goals. And some of them are very small and they're important goals and we want them to pursue them, but they just don't make this list. So of some of the goals we've got, we're going to restructure and expand the volunteer program at Crow Canyon Gardens to revitalize the park and foster positive community engagement. That's been a big goal. You heard public services say it, but we're very happy. We're upgrading and replacing the aging pace clock system at the San Ramon Olympic Pool and Doherty Valley Aquatic Center. That's so when you're lap swimming, you can see how fast you are going. We're implementing that sports field sponsorship program to help offset field maintenance costs. We're working in partnership with the school district to replace the existing teen center at Pine Valley Middle School and implement another long-term use agreement for that space. There's a hole in the floor right now that's been repaired like 3 times. So it's going to be a new building. We're really excited about that. We are partnering with East Bay Regional Park District and other organizations to provide additional exploratory nature programs and green education for youth, teen, and adults. We're creating and offering new eco-education guided hikes for various ages and demographics. We're implementing the senior walking program, senior center, and expanding the 55+ fitness programs to provide more evening and weekend experiences for our older aging workforce. We know we've got some seniors out there who are working, need to work still, and they want programs. And so right now we've been more daytime, so we're reaching a little further out this next year. We're researching, planning, and implementing new adult sport league opportunities, including pickleball, as soon as we get those courts, and bocce. Exploring opportunities to connect and collaborate with local agencies to increase social recreation activities for participants with disabilities. This is a big one. We've always had our program for special needs. We've always had Jessica, who's our certified recreation therapist, but we want to start focusing a little more on that and seeing where we can expand and partner really with other agencies and groups that are doing programming and see how we can stretch those resources in that area. We want to research and advocate for alternative transportation options for seniors. Imagine that this is on here. Because we do, as you said, and it's a goal for us, is again to look harder and look at our partners and find different ways to offer these services and see what we can do. We want to implement additional diversity, equity, and inclusion training for both our full and part-time staff to increase cultural sensitivity. We do some diversity, equity, and inclusion training with our staff, but we'd like to do a little more and we'd like to go a little deeper. So right now we do it at our all staff meetings, but this is focusing that goal in and really narrowing it down. We want to implement new arts-focused events and presentations at our newly rebranded Doherty Station Community Arts Center. Complete a San Ramon Trails Master Plan to create that long-term vision for the city's open space and trail system. And then last, but certainly not least, and there is a slide at the very end of this presentation where we're going to dig into this. We want to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the incorporation of San Ramon through a year-long celebration featuring monthly events and exhibits focused on the past, present, and future of San Ramon. I know that was high speed, but hopefully that gave you a quick picture of where we've been, where we're going, and now how we're going to pay for it. May.
Good evening, commissioners. So today I'll be talking about our proposed budget for the upcoming fiscal year 2023-2024. So just as an introduction, as you've heard last night, if you're at the City Council Budget Workshop, and then also earlier today, our staff works extremely hard to maintain a 50% cost recovery. For the upcoming fiscal year and our proposed budget, we're actually slightly above that at 53.3%, and you'll see those numbers shortly. But basically, the main challenge for us is that our expenditures are outpacing the revenue that we're generating. So as you can see in the upcoming slides, some of our major obstacles include the high cost of salaries and benefits, a continuous increase in CPI, and just our main goal, the objective of Parks and Community Services, to provide free and social service oriented programs that are desired by the community and the priorities of the City Council. So some of the things that you'll see in the next few slides would be additional hours for the library contract, the beautiful street banners that you see along Bollinger, of course, funding for our open space programs, our joint use partnership with the San Ramon Valley Unified School District, the Crow Canyon Garden restroom rental, and of course, senior transportation, contracts with our historic property, and many of our beautiful events that you guys attend and love, such as our summer concerts, a community tree lighting, culture in the community, and possibly a parade. So before I start, just a little brief introduction of what happened with this particular budget cycle. So typically what the entire city staff does for every upcoming budget cycle is, of course, we work on our round one of the budget, so our proposed budget. So for us in Parks and Community Services, we actually did an initial round of cuts. This is just a very short synopsis of what we actually did. Once our staff did our preliminary review of the budget, we actually did additional cuts before it was even proposed to the city manager. Some of these reductions include discontinuing the Scarecrow Scavenger Hunt to create staff bandwidth for this year's 40th anniversary programs, changing our presenting series brochure to an actual postcard to save on the pages of the brochure itself, plus the postage to actually mail that out, reducing our Camp Central marketing budget, reducing frontline office assistant temporary staff, also reducing part-time staff at our teen centers, reducing our full-time training budget, reducing our uniform replacement budget for our full-time staff, deferring a portion of the table and appliance replacement program, decreasing supply budgets across the board in all of our programs, and then additional small cuts and reductions. All of these cuts in total equal a net of 40,691. So that was just in our preliminary round one. So this is our proposed 23-24 budget. The expenditures total 9.5 million, which is a 1.07 million increase from last year. Our revenue is 5 million, which is 471,000 higher than our current fiscal year budget. Our subsidy is about 4.4, which is a $600,000 increase from our current fiscal year, which again is a 53.3% cost recovery. So to dive into that a little bit, here's a snapshot of our proposed budget. So what you see in that orange border is our proposed budget for next year. And to the left of that is our current fiscal year, just for comparison. So the columns on the the two far right columns represent either a numerical value, if you like to see the actual dollar amount, or if you're a percentage person, we also have it reflected as a percentage. So one of the key things that I really want to point out is that jump in full-time salary and benefits which you could see in that first bullet point is 858,000. So in our current fiscal year, the reason why it was such a huge jump, our benefits were actually covered by a bond. And as of right now, that's not in place. So citywide, all of our departments are seeing the same thing where we actually have benefits basically skyrocketing when you compare it to our current fiscal year. For our contracts, that went up by 116,000, which is only 7%. And then also in our other category, we actually initially had a savings, but then the city brought back the IS replacement, which we didn't have in our current fiscal year. And that actually, IS replacement refers to like our computer equipment that need to be replaced. So we didn't have that at all this year, but returning it to the budget, that actually brought our savings to 52,000 higher than our current fiscal year, because again, it wasn't in our budget. We do have some savings. The savings is about 1,200, and that's within our supplies. So a little backtrack again, or some background, if you will. So when we proposed our budget, when the entire city proposed the budgets to the city manager, the city found that there was actually a $7.5 million shortage citywide. So all departments were asked to come back and either propose additional cuts or additional revenue enhancements that could actually minimize that shortfall to the city. So these are the additional revenue enhancements that are not included in the proposed budget that you just saw. These are additional revenue enhancements on top of that. The revenue enhancements that our department is proposing total over $100,000. The first one being increasing the parking amount at the Art and Wind Festival. So for that, to clarify, that is going to be in summer 2024. So we already have our parking fee set for Art and Wind this year, which is $7. So we're proposing to increase it by $3 to $10 per car, 2024. We're also proposing to charge for tennis court rentals. So if you wanted to reserve a tennis court, that would be $2 plus a credit card convenience fee, which is approximately $2. That would bring about $4,800 in additional revenue to the city. We're also proposing to increase the senior drop-in classes from $4 to $5. That's $3,600. For facility rentals, we just essentially believe that there is additional revenue opportunity, especially with our Doherty Station Community Arts Center coming on board. We just feel that there's additional revenue that could be reflected in that. Originally, when we created the budget, we weren't factoring in the actuals of the Doherty Station Community Arts Center because it wasn't open this current fiscal year. Also increase the presenting series ticket price revenue. We're expecting possibly 14,000 more, increasing sport field sponsorship. So we spoke with our sports field sponsorship team, and we are hoping, praying that we can find a field sponsor that could potentially provide $15,000 to $20,000 next year. Also adding Central Park Summer Cart concessions, that would be $1,500 in the summer months. And then lastly, adding VIP $20 parking for summer concerts. So that would be having our backlot right here in City Hall, additional parking spots that would actually be staffed by a part-time person. So minus the 1,008, it would be 8,000 in additional revenue. Part of the budget process also includes having a 5-year plan. So just some upcoming budgetary needs that we are forecasting for our department. We will inevitably need to replace our current table and chairs at the community centers. As you saw on the previous slide, we are already starting to try and save money where we can, but we're eventually going to get to a point where we don't want to have ratty tables and ratty chairs. We are charging fees for people to rent our rooms. So we want to ensure that we're providing them with, nice looking tables and chairs for their events like weddings and whatnot. Also replacing the sound system at DovPAC. That would be theatrical equipment replacement, about $150,000. We're currently having 3 shows within our presenting series. Ideally, we'd like to return to a full-scale 5-show presenting series. That would be $100,000 in expenses. And then also, as we have the opening of upcoming parks and new facilities, fields. We do need a full-time staff recreation technician to help with those rentals. And with both the salary and the benefits, that would be $163,000. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Kathy.
Yeah, and I will also mention that you might have figured out that slide just appeared in your packet, and it did, and that's because we were asked to do it at the last minute for city council and got it to them, and I wanted you all to have it. So that's why we also printed this packet out and put it at your places so that you would have a copy of it. So anyway, that's where that came from, and that's why it's a surprise. So surprise. The last slide in the packet, we also updated a little bit. So the one in the packet or that's in here is a little different, like 1 or 2 lines different than what you received. And so we talked last night or yesterday with the city council about the 40-year anniversary. In light of all of these budget things, we needed direction from the city council about what they wanted us to pursue, because we've made a lot of cuts. We have a deficit. We are, as a city, and how much or how little of a celebration did they want? So we presented this list and they loved it all. They want to do it all. But they, of course, want us to try and go find some sponsors to try and mitigate that. So I don't know if we're going to be able to do this entire list, but I'm going to run through it with you. And I'd be interested in your feedback, because if we can't afford to do it all, because we can't generate enough sponsor dollars, I'm interested in some priorities. Because we'll be going back to the city council at their next workshop to talk more about it. And I'd like to have the commissions, right, we think this is great, or what are you thinking? So anyway, for the 40th anniversaries, we want to do street banners along Bollinger Canyon. That's about $5,000. We are considering trying to put a drone show in, something the city's wanted for a while. Around concert, maybe outside in like at the Wind Festival, we have that Chevron stage, and it's out in that big open area. If we extended, let's just say we extended the Wind Festival longer and did an evening concert and then went into a drone show, or a 4th of July concert to a drone show. I think we may be too late for this year's 4th of July just because of the cost. It's probably prohibitive to try and pull that off now, but something like that. Gala, not a black and white party, but a gala that might utilize a fountain room in the City Hall Rotunda, offset by ticket revenue, would be a fancy dinner party. How much money we make depends on how much we charge for those tickets. This would not be the full big tent in the lot and all of that. When we actually priced it out, that money there, that $40,000 is about what just the tent would cost with all the tables and the linens and everything else. So probably not the most logical. So a smaller scale gala. We do have that parade on there, the light parade. We've been toying with the light parade and maybe attaching it to culture in the community in the fall. I'm a little nervous now that we just had the rainiest March I've ever seen on record, that I really need to find a time when the sun is setting and I feel like it's not going to rain. And
the fire season, which also fills the fall.
it does. Yes, stress. It's very stressful. But anyway, we're looking at potentially attaching it to culture in the community. And because we've talked about this being a celebration of light and culture, that maybe we do culture in the community during the day, have a little break, and then we have this beautiful parade so people could go make their lanterns and make all these light cultural things, and then have them do the parade. So there's a vision out there. And I think there's the will and the interest in potentially doing it this year. So that's on the list. We'd like a little more money for swag and giveaways, because we know we'd like people to be able to walk away with something that says San Ramon's 40th. We do have a very modest budget, currently 3,000. We'd like to move that up to 5,000. Of course, we're going to rebrand all our existing events, concerts, everything we've got to 40, because we can make it match. And so there's there's gallery exhibits, there's all kinds of exciting things that we can do. And finally, most interestingly, 40 years ago, this San Ramon was a fascinating place. We were moving and shaking and things were going on, because it's also the Run for Education's 40th anniversary. And they are asking to partner with us and be involved and to connect and tie our runs together, which we think is a great idea. And the San Ramon Chamber is also 40 years old, and they want to partner and they want to be a part and they want to connect. And so we think it would be helpful to have a little money so that we can do that. So all told, that comes to $174,000. And like I said, the city council loved the whole list. But we have to, they wanted us to pursue to figure out what we could fund in it. And so
Did we get one last stand by Chevron?
Chevron's already promised us money for next year as a sponsor, so we can go back and ask them, but I don't know what's there. And you know, sponsorship is one of those things that sometimes you really resonate and you can do really well, but it does take some time, and sometimes you put a lot of time, energy in and you don't get very much. But we don't know, we haven't tried yet.
So shall we start with overarching questions first, clarifying questions on everything?
Yes.
Okay, Commissioner Mitra?
All right. So Kathy, when you, somebody said parade, my antenna went up, like, oh, really? We're doing it? So good. I got some details after that. So that's what you were thinking. So because that was one of my first questions was, what are you thinking? What is the cost? Are we really serious about it? Stuff like that. But you already answered that. So thank you. So the proposed 23-24 budget, I have a couple of questions, May, is that I was just looking at the numbers and I was seeing that there is a 12.7% increase. That's a difference, right? Between 22-23 and 24. That's a big jump. And we know why. And we have that one. It's also true that if we compare the cost recovery, so 22-23, we had 54.5%. That was a cost recovery. This year, 53.3. So slight down 1.2% further. Is this the trend? So my question is this at some point we are in a risk of going below 50% in the near future?
Our goal is to always remain above 50%. Our mid-year for this current fiscal year, we're around 52%. So that's where we expect to end our current fiscal year. That's really just one of the top priorities for this department. So I would highly doubt to say that we'll ever be below 50, because assuming that everything continues to trend high, we'll always plan our revenue to be at a certain ratio that it's always covering at least a minimum of 50% of our expenditures.
So you're saying, if I understand correctly, that if at any moment we see that is going down below 50%, we will make the adjustments to make it higher than 50%.
Correct. We'll do everything that we can to ensure it remains over 50%.
Can I jump in on one point there that I just want to make clarity? The social service programs we offer have an effect on the department's overall budget. So if the council and the commission direction is headed more towards social services, then we may have trouble managing that. Right now, we have a balance and we work hard to hold the balance, but there's a tipping point. If everything is free, if everything is free community events and senior services and nature programs, that list we gave you, library hours, all of it,
right,
at some point, we will not be able to maintain the balance. And then we'll be coming back to the commission and saying, we can't maintain the balance. Something's got to give.
Right. Exactly. That is my point. So we are giving a lot of things free, social services, subsidizing a lot of stuff at the same time, our benefit salary going up, and all those things happening. If we have to do something to keep that 50%.
Right. And so right now in that fee resolution, we raise fees. We analyze what we're doing, we cut costs, we trim off things, we try to be more efficient. So we're still able to do that. And that's the main department goal, and that's what we do. But it's right, you're right there. And we've been able to do it. Again, more free, then we have to generate more revenue.
More revenue. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. Next one. Yeah, can you just explain me about, this is the page number 51. I get it 51 on that. It says other, which is a projected budget is 52. Which one are you talking about? 52,332. That's a 200% increase. What happened there?
That's mainly due to the IS replacement. So IS replacement was not in our budget at all this current fiscal year, and it's returning back into the budget next year. So it went from essentially being 0 to 58,000.
Whatever the cap is. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Because it's from 26,000 to it went up to all the way to 78,000, 79,000. Right.
Correct. Yeah. We didn't have IS replacement at all in our current current year budget.
Okay, all right. Other thing is that benefits, you talked about a little bit about benefits, that benefit, what, can you explain me one more time?
So for salary
Salary and
expenses
benefits, what is
alone,
the benefit thing that we didn't get it? You said something, I didn't catch it.
there's a bond. So for our current budget, we actually had a bond, an OPEB bond that actually was able to subsidize the cost of benefits for all full-time employees citywide. So the way that this upcoming budget was structured, we weren't going to use the OPEB. It wasn't going to be available anymore. And so all city departments had to basically reassume that cost within our own department budgets.
So basically, it's like a savings account that the city actually, if I understand correctly, may funded to take it to a certain level, and then we drew it down to offset the costs, some of these costs that you're talking about. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's, I think, other pension employee benefits. Correct.
OPEB.
OPEB.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Last question. You said venture tech,
Yes.
39,000. Is this after the, whatever the revenue you generate, or is it the cost for us before the revenue collections?
Venue Tech is our contractor. They're our theater manager contractor. So it's specifically the expenses for their contract. So that includes things like the theater house manager, our staff. I'm sure Brad could probably answer this a little more clearly than I can.
Yeah, and that number is just the increase of the contract. So if you remember when we did the fee resolution, we did increase some of those costs to rent the theater. So our goal was to offset those expenses.
So this is
But this dollar right here is just purely the increase in expenses due to the contract to operate a theater.
Okay. Okay. So, but there is a side of the revenue collections.
Correct.
the
It's not
theater.
taken
That-
into
that is not taken
consideration.
into
This is all
only
expenses
the
in this
expense
current, what
contracting.
you're looking
Okay.
at. It does not include the
Got it.
increases in the
Got it.
theater productions.
Okay. And another one is that credit card fees. That one is, if I understand correctly, that when I rent something or pay through credit card, that is the charges, right?
Correct. Yeah.
That's
And
the
for our
600.
credit card fees, it's a little bit of a misnomer when you look at it in the budget, because if you're looking at that by itself, it looks like it's going up by maybe 18,000 or 20,000. But for our credit card fees, we charge a convenience fee.
Right.
So we actually have revenue that completely
That
offsets that
yeah,
expenditure.
exactly. But because that is not, when we don't incur that, it is, we
Correct.
can kind of get it offset.
Yes.
Right. Right. I had last question about the drone, but I think you have already explained that, because that was like, well, okay, what are you doing with drones? But good. I like that idea. Thank you.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesek.
Thank you. I think it's the seat. Ding, your order is ready.
It used to be mine.
It used to be yours, I know.
Yeah.
Down to next week.
Yeah, but the benefits, yes. All right, I'm curious about sponsorships. Who is responsible for and what kind of bandwidth do they have for and you know, I guess runway for working on these kinds of sponsorships? They can certainly be a big.
Well, it's spread out a little bit, but May has taken the mantle on and has done a great job of working with our big corporate sponsors. We do have the team that did start the sports field sponsorship, and so we'll be probably continuing to have them work on it as well. It's a whole department kind of initiative, you know, from the small sponsorship, like I've got a small event and I'm going to go find a sponsor, to the overarching ones that May's really working on, like with Chevron or Patelco.
And do you guys have like a sponsorship package that's already set? And
Let me
okay.
answer.
Yes, we do. It depends on the vendor. For someone like Chevron, they've been a repeat sponsor
Yeah.
for many, many years. And there are a series of events that they know that they would like to sponsor. So for example, there are presenting sponsor for the Art and Wind Festival. They've sponsored the theaters in the past, but for someone like them, we usually meet with them usually early on in the year to just kind of determine what their budget is, what kind of events they're thinking of sponsoring, and then we just go from there. They actually have been kind of waiting before committing to this full year, because they also wanted to see what was going to happen with the anniversary. But they have already committed to this year's Art and Wind Festival and Run San Ramon. So they're usually the sponsor of both races. For some of our other partners, There's frankly no one that quite matches the budget of Chevron. So that is kind of a challenge that we're facing right now. Speaking of increased costs and expenditures, a lot of our corporate partners are also facing that as well. So in the past where we've been able to rely on certain partners to usually, throw in a couple thousand here for this race or for something like culture in the community. We have some partners now that are just completely saying, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for culture in the community. I can't do this full package for the Outstanding Teen Award. So we are facing those types of challenges, but we do try to keep things fairly consistent across the board. So if you were to go to the Art and Wind Festival right now, you would see our sponsorship tiers. So whether you're a corporate sponsor, a nonprofit sponsor, small business sponsor, that rate is usually the same across all of our events.
So it seems like this 40th anniversary is a real opportunity to do outreach and dialing for dollars and contacting businesses and saying, it's time to be part of this. And so I imagine you have the staffing too. Because you can put it out there and say, oh, become a sponsor. But the reality is, I know, right? But the reality is, it seems like this is going to be a big initiative where you're potentially making phone calls and getting people into the tent for this, right? Even the onesie, twosie and small, they can add up quite a bit.
Oh, absolutely.
And generate that
And they're
enthusiasm.
the bread and butter of like our races, for example. So for Bah Humbug last year, we didn't have as many main corporate sponsors as we did the year previously. It really was the smaller sponsors like, the coding schools and
right.
They
love
those
to do
types
that.
of vendors. And so they're definitely our bread and butter, and we love their continued partnership and support of the community.
Okay. I had a couple of questions. I guess it's not exactly cost recovery, but maybe a little bit on some of these 40th anniversary events. One thought I had was with respect to the gala, for example, would we, besides looking for sponsors, would we consider fundraising components, a live or silent auction or other things to help offset the costs of it and or generate?
Absolutely. We'll be looking for all different ways to try and support them. And so it just, we haven't gotten into the details of that. We needed to see if it was actually an event that the city council and the commission are interested in us pursuing. And at that point, then we'll see how much money we can offset for that one.
Okay.
specifically.
And then hopefully collaborating on the big ticket calendars. Obviously, there are events like this that go on in the community, but seems like this would be a good opportunity, but I would love to see us try to think about silent live auction sponsorships so that basically and the ticket prices, if anything, it becomes a generator. Rather than but I love it. Not that we're asking for comments yet. I wanted to follow up though on the drone show following 4th of July or another event. What does that mean following 4th of July?
Because right now we have a 4th of July concert. So
Okay.
I think we probably could have put more words on that. We didn't try and fit everything on a slide. I think that the main concept we have is that if we moved the stage as we do it for the Art and Wind Festival, rather than the amphitheater, because drone show wouldn't work in the amphitheater. So you have to pick that up and you have to move it, which means you need the stage infrastructure. If we're going to go and wait till the dark, we need outside lights. It's just a different kind of a thing. So if we were going to do it for the 4th, then we'd want to move the stage, add the lights, and then stay a little later. It could make more sense potentially with the Wind Festival because the stage is already over there. So then it's just a matter of increasing the length of time. And so if you look at a 40th anniversary celebration as a year long, and let's just say we tag the things that happened this summer to celebrate. We have a parade in, let's say, the end of September with culture in the community. We have tree lightings and holiday events. We come around to the Wind Festival. We have a drone show. We stay up late. We do a different thing for the Wind Festival on the Sunday night. You kind of end up with some big events and things that are spread out. If we put it on the 4th of July next year, it could be at the end of the thing, but it's right out of our 40th year. And I think there's probably might be too much expectation. Like it's like a firework. We might get overwhelmed. So I'd say if we're going to do the drone show, it's either attaching to the summer concerts this year, or it's attaching to the Wind Festival next year. And next year it's most cost efficient because we've already got the stage.
So we're roughly looking at a fiscal year celebration, July to
June.
June. Okay. The other question I had was, again, in thinking about offsetting costs and creating more celebration around it, is like the drone show, for example, the concert and whatever, would we look at potentially bringing food vendors, food trucks that might contribute either a booth fee or a percentage or something, so that, again, we create a larger, more of an event that draws people and provides more and maybe contribute some revenue to the event? I think there's opportunities. I mean, I don't know the logistics and I don't know the rules from the city versus doing some of these things from the school district, but like when we do some of these events, we bring in, like you guys do, booth vendors or services, but it creates that larger atmosphere and potentially offsets some costs. Is
Yeah,
that something to?
I think, well, that's part of the reason I think we were looking at the Wind Festival as a structure for it, because we can reduce costs and incrementally the food booths are there, all of these other infrastructure are there. Would it generate exponential revenue if we put it on that one? No. If we do a standalone, yes, all possible. So all considerations.
Okay. And likewise, as we consider the movie nights and the summer concerts, and honestly, I'm not here often in the summer, if there are opportunities to generate revenue through inviting food and services to create, again, more environment, it's a more welcoming, fun atmosphere, but also could generate a little revenue. I'm just, curious if that's something to consider. I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we'll go to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
Yes, we do, from Taiwan is a country.
Thank you, May.
Thank you.
Thank you, staff, for your presentation. I would like the commissioners to please consider my words like a pair of scissors. So I'm going to turn myself into Edward the Scissorhands, and I'm going to sculpt the presentation.
And I will, can we stop the timer, please, and give her a full 3 minutes? I just want to say, you sort of touched on the budget at the very beginning, so we want to hear from you, but make sure you don't repeat yourself. So new stuff.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Introduction. If you remember, I'm going by the presentation page. So if we can follow along on the screen, you can probably better understand me. The introduction, the staff presented several projects that are basically money losers. And over there, I was a little bit disappointed that I didn't see the overall thing that these projects are causing. So from my perspective, I really cannot see, how much of a loss this is creating, how we can possibly sculpt these projects, whether fine tuning them or, drop them. I simply can't, because it's lack of information. So if the staff can please kindly add numbers to this in the next presentation, it would greatly help, including the council members, to see how much, by keeping what they want is really causing the taxpayers' money. However, there are some priorities that I can probably give you right now. I would think senior transportation, historic property, and library contracts, or I'm sorry, not library contracts, but the youth support of school programs. These three are priorities because I can tell these three are gearing towards tax-paying residents. The others, like library contract, it can be county. Open space, definitely a lot of them are non-residents. These probably events like concerts, parade, these we can charge more, probably increase it to 75% cost recovery instead of 50%. So please negotiate them with city council members. Next page. You have cut a lot of, staff here. I really prefer not to see cutting staff, in my opinion, because job matters. And whenever you cut something, it's hard to get the talents back. However, you have to do what you have to do. I just urge you to please keep an eye on public safety and public health. Next page, proposed 23-24 budget. No problem there, but
You have 30 seconds.
all the pluses could be kind of misleading. If you really care about me saying something, please give me enough time. This is important. I only have 2 more pages to go. Okay. So the next one I want to talk about proposed revenue enhancements. Increase parking to $10 is good for resident. For non-resident, I suggest $15. Tennis court, $2. Come on. You know, we can all afford to pay at least $5. And for non-resident, probably 10. And
Okay, time to start wrapping up if you could, please.
Park summer card concessions, you can probably bring in more. You know, if we can possibly, you know, get our residents to do those, you know, service. And regarding the 40-year anniversary, I just want to say, whenever you guys want money, you think of Chevron, but most of the days you just bang them to death. If I were Chevron, I would probably give you a middle finger. What I can do, please listen, this is important.
but you're way
If you go to Chevron, I can possibly get you a very decent mileage yielding car. I would like to hook up with the staff to work on that, to get you the money that you need and then the draw. So if you want to go to Chevron, please don't bang them, you know, during regular time. And thank you, Chevron, go. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we get, do we have any other public comment?
No, at this time.
Okay, all righty, so we're gonna go to commissioner comments and we're gonna start with Commissioner Osland.
Thank you very much, May. Great presentation. And thank you, Kathy, for recapping our wonderful last year, all these accomplishments. One idea I've had about proposed revenue enhancements was to follow what some of the other cities that I visited have done with bricks, with family names on them, and people buy a brick and it can be a part of our community. And that can take place here at the community center, could be partly at City Hall, could be around our community. And I think it would behoove us to do some research on that, because that could be tied into the 40th anniversary. And it also could be something that's ongoing. I've also seen cities to take children's artwork and create tiles, and that can also be another revenue generator. I don't know if they're huge, but I think that it does kind of cross off a lot of boxes as far as bringing our community together, and where families can come and they can see their investment in the community. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much for a great presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner Osland. Anybody else have comments? Commissioner Breed?
Yeah, hey, Kathy, I want to answer your question on the 40th. So if you said if we had to prioritize, is that
Well, if there's something that you think is the highest priority, then yeah, I definitely want to know that.
Yeah,
What's low?
okay, I just want to try and help. Can I go low? And then
Go low.
high? Okay. What I would say is, so I'm assuming this is not funded the 40th year in the current budget. So what I would do is, if I had to take something out, I would take let me say the principle. The principle is saying, what events do we have that would reach the most number of citizens in the city, and communicate what we're trying to celebrate with the 40th year. So for me, the gala doesn't do that. So I would take that off first if I was trying to save money. I think the gala is important. And then I would also take a look at possibly taking out the drones, because you already have a big event behind Art and Win. And I like your idea tying in Art and Win, by the way. Don't put it with 4th of July because of what you said. If I did, because the light parade will reach more people, it's new, and it's something we can anniversary from a budget standpoint. So I don't know if I wouldn't cut anything, I love it all, but that's what I would go do, because I'm trying to reach as many people as I possibly can on that. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
It is.
And then the last thing is, I do think if we need to raise more revenue, I know fees are set, but there are areas, I think, when we look at some of the fees, that we could go adjust up again and still not lose some folks, because there's a big opportunity. Because I like your comment you said earlier, is that we need to keep that balance, and I agree with you. And I also like how we're looking of how do we have other assets that we can rent out or be more revenue producing, like where we put, what's that over by that big, when we went to go look at the black railings or the color black brown,
The shape.
yes, could we make that more productive for the community? And I'll create a list of some thoughts, but those are the ones that just hit me right away because I'm like, oh, how cool would that be for a tiny wedding? But how do we take our assets and market them a little bit differently and leverage them to the community and create awareness behind them? So, and I think that's a good investment. So that's all I have for now, but thanks.
Commissioner Ellicott Pesic.
Thank you again. This was super helpful and very efficiently and quickly delivered. Ding, we're all ready. Along the lines of Commissioner Breed, just giving you feedback, I also agree that the light parade to me is a higher priority than the drone. I think it can reach a lot more people. It's more exciting. I'm kind of on the drones, frankly. I have always wanted us to have a 4th of July thing again. But we know we can't do that. And until we can, I'm kind of, I think that involving that could create an expectation that just leads to disappointment. Even the drone with the Art and Wind Festival, there's already a lot going on with Art and Wind. So it doesn't move me as much. If we had to drop something, that one probably is a lower priority for me, unless, we have somebody who wants to put on an exhibition at no cost to us. And there may be groups out there because there are drone companies that may want to do something. So in terms of that, on the gala, I think that's a really fun idea. I think that's a nice kind of creative connection, having an opportunity for people to dress up. However, it's a lot of work. And I probably wouldn't do it unless it can fully fund itself. And possibly then some. I would love to see that be a generator. I think it could be a generator. And even if it just funds itself, I think when you're balancing the amount of work that goes into it, and, coming out even with the number of people that will actually participate, if you had to drop something else and, again, stay with the light parade and some of the other stuff, I'd probably do that. I do love the idea of the gala though, if we can make it a fundraiser. And I really do think that could be a real opportunity to get people involved and feeling exciting and get to dress up and be fun in our own town. So I think that's very, very helpful. In terms of cost recovery, I think about a lot that, we pay in our tax dollars and other things. And I still apologize for always just looking one direction, this microphone, I don't know. Not double charging for our folks that already pay for the parks and things like that. But there's definitely seem to be opportunities here. Like I think the tennis courts, it's great that they're free, but a nominal charge of, a few dollars, et cetera. I think that also creates a respect expectation that you're reserving, you're participating. I think those are nominal and you probably are already there. But if you think it's worth it, I would maybe take another look at the resident, non-resident, what things, maybe we do have a fairly affluent community. It's not going to create a burden for literally anybody, potentially, right? Or, maybe there's a tennis court that you reserve out there that's open because that makes sense, but others have a charge. I don't know what you're going to charge for a pickleball, but these are opportunities where they, the overall cost of the facilities and the reservation system are worth charging something for. I still want to keep us accessible and not essentially double taxing everybody, but I think there's room there without being able to give you specifics. But, I'm certainly open to that idea of re-looking at them if you guys think you haven't done so recently in that light. Thank you. This is fantastic. I'm excited about the 40th. Love the partnerships. I do know that there's another big organization that has a lot of participants that is celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. So off by 10. But you know what? There may be an opportunity to, wrap other folks in that are doing something special like that too, tangentially. Thank you.
Oh, the bell's ringing again here down here too. I would have to agree that I think the drone show would be on my list, not as important as the others, because I think we have enough going on. And that would be my first one that I would think we could probably, and that was very expensive too. And the gala would be fine, but I do know it's working in this area, I know it's extremely hard, and I think you'd have to have some kind of entertainment with it also to make it successful. And so there's a lot of work that would have to go into that to make it successful, because sometimes people aren't coming out like they used to. So those are my thoughts. You know, the parade is good, and like the banners along, you know, it's just lively that way. But that would be my two things that I would have concerns about.
Okay, thank you. And all I will add, I actually want to validate what Commissioner Breed said about going with things that have more bang for your buck and reach more community members. And so I am a huge proponent of the parade. I love the fact that it crosses all cultures, it crosses organizations. It's novel in the immediate area. I feel it has a lot of potential for creating community at a time where there are challenges. And so I feel like it's a unifying force. I think it's relatively low bang for the buck. And I realize there's a lot of coordination that goes in, but I think folks could get really behind it if we did it right. I did want to throw out there that maybe folks like the Historic Foundation could target their speaker series to 40th anniversary themes for somebody who might be involved with that process. I don't know. And that was it. But I think good work. I mean, it's a lot of detail. So thank you for all that. So hearing no additional comments from commissioners, I think we are able to close out this topic. There's no action required, correct? Okay. And then we're to item 8.4, the 2023-2014 council appointment recommendations. Kathy, did you want to make an introduction on that?
Super brief, because I think you're all really familiar, but it's recommended that you approve a recommendation to the council for the appointment of 18 applicants to serve on the teen council with terms to expire in 2024. Further recommended that you prioritize a wait list. You all went through all of them. There were 84 applications that were screened by Commissioners Ellicott, Pesic, Osland, and Lopez Lucy. From that list, 39 virtual interviews were conducted by Commissioners Dorlick, Keniston, Lee, and Breed, who then have come up with a recommendation that is in your packet. I could read all the names. I will read them definitely at the city council. I will read them now if you would like me to.
Can we entertain a motion without reading the names?
You can, because.
So
it's
moved.
attached in the packet.
Second.
Wait a minute, we didn't do public comment, my friends.
Well, you
Yeah.
said entertain a motion.
I mean, I'm asking, I asked the question,
Yeah.
can we?
Oh.
I said, can we?
We
Yes.
did.
Okay, well, we're gonna table that motion for the second, and we're gonna ask, are there any clarifying questions?
Make a motion, then
He's
you
right.
have discussion.
He's right.
Stop. Okay,
Right.
do we have any public comment?
But he's right, though.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
Have discussion with them.
I don't have any problem with whoever you appoint, but I just think that your interview process is kind of sloppy. You are a, commission of 2, 4, 6, 7, but only 3 interviewed these people. And you just basically did the motion by error. If I were the parent of the student who applied, I don't think I'll be very happy. So I really think that you guys really need to do a full panel. If you don't want to open it up to the public because they're minors, so be it. I will not attend. But for you to only have 3 people interview 84 something, I don't know. I mean, there's got to be, some people that this commissioner knows or that commissioner knows, and God knows how fair is your process. Now, my student, just for disclosure, my student is not one of them. So I'm speaking for other people's children. They all deserve fair, transparent interview process. Currently, a taxpayer like me who attends public meeting, who doesn't have a student in this 84 applicant pool, thinks that it's not really transparent. Thank you.
okay. Any other public comment?
Not at this time.
Okay, we are formally closing public comment. There will be no more public comment on this item. I will say, and I believe I'm at liberty to comment because it's an agendized item, am I not?
Mhm.
Okay, I will say I've participated for many years, with all due respect, and I've always found it to be a very thorough, a very impartial, in a very fair process where every applicant is given full consideration. And so I feel that compelled to just reassure folks that we take this very seriously. I think it's probably one of our favorite things that we do, actually, because we value our teen community. We value the folks on the council as voices for our teen community. And so I just wanted to say that. So having said that, I'm going to formally, because before I was asking the question, but now I will formally ask for the motion, which apparently has already been provided through proper channels by Commissioner Osland. Thank you, Commissioner Osland, and seconded by Commissioner Breed. So we can now vote. Any further discussion? If we're going to be really technical here.
Hey,
Okay.
I do. I want to say one thing. Hey, I just want to thank staff and everyone who organized it. It was super efficient. It was easy for us to follow. It was a lot of paperwork, by the way, but I know I'm just saying, but it was really well organized. And I think for Commissioner Dorlick and Kensington Lee and I, it drove efficiency when we were doing interviews. So I know it was a lot of work and it was much appreciated on our end as we went through the interview. So thanks a ton for doing that. That was big like a house. So.
And I appreciate the letters of recommendation still being attached as I reviewed the applicants to rank them. They just added a little component of it. So I appreciate that.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, and so let's vote. Oh, did you want to say something?
Well, I just also wanted to say, the three people also reviewed all of the applicants. So, I mean, they got due process. And very much so, and if anybody had a child with an application, they recused themselves. So I think it is very fair.
Okay, all right. No further discussion, then we will go to a vote. Somebody's vote got a ding. Okay, so the motion is passed 7 out of 7. Thank you again to everybody who contributed to that. We are now going to go to staff reports. Were there any questions on item 9.1? I just wanted to, any clarifying questions? Hearing none. Public comment on this item? Yeah, I believe we're at staff reports 9.1, correct?
The rec reports, isn't that what you're on?
Yeah.
The recreation maintenance and operations report.
You guys didn't have anything. I mean, like, nobody said anything. You wanted to go.
Well, we don't have any, I don't see any clarifying questions from our commissioners, so we're at public comment.
No, I don't.
No public comment?
Oh, yes, there is.
Okay,
Okay,
but you
because
hadn't submitted a card, so they didn't know, but you have something to say.
sorry, I apologize. So can I give it to you later? Sorry, I haven't filled it out either, because like I said, I'm a responsible public commenter. I usually want to listen to what you guys have to say first, and then I will submit it. Unless I'm able to read succinct reports, then I would, give them the cards ahead of time. So please don't rush me. I can see.
Yeah,
But by
I just
rushing
don't
me,
want you to
that's
run out of time.
extremely disrespectful, please. It's okay, it's my time. I have the freedom to, utilize my time, so please don't dictate me like a communist captain. I have the freedom. If I want to slow down, if I want to waste my time talking about this, it's my freedom. Thank you. So because you rushed me, I wasn't able to share earlier about a budget item, which I think can be in the operations report. You have prepared for next year's fiscal cycle to replace furnitures. I highly recommend to please defer that right now, because all the furnitures, those are operation. Those furnitures are still in great working order. I would highly recommend you do what the senior centers do. The other day I went to their meeting. I was so pleased with how formal and beautiful they look because they used tablecloth. So, we can possibly save hundreds of thousands of dollars just by using something as, affordable and beautiful as tablecloths. For chairs, I have noticed that there are some stains. I would recommend hiring a good steamer first. Those that, really cannot be cleaned, then either, get rid of them or, hire a seamstress through a contractor or whatever, and get like a seat covers for next year, please. Because right now we don't have money. We're 3.4 million in the hole. So I think there's something that we as responsible adults can sort of, control our urges to want to, get it and get it now. The police waited 2 years to get their computer updated. I'm sure we can wait 2 years to get our furnitures replaced. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comment? Any commissioner comments? I wanted to reiterate that the dog park really did look nice, and I want to give a shout out to Public Works because they had to hustle because it was right around rain. They had to like dry stuff up and really do extra work to get it where we could do the opening, and it looked really good. So thanks to, yeah.
As a note too, Becky was able to get the tennis balls and give
Oh,
them to
yeah.
each of you. And the leash is from Veg, who was the sponsor.
Yeah. Okay, guys, we're in the home stretch. I know it's a long one. So we're gonna go to item 10, Commissioner Liaison Reports and Announcements. Commissioner Roseland, you want to start?
Sure. I am going to report out on the Open Space Advisory Committee. We held a hike on last Saturday, and that was at the Tassajara Ridge Trail, and fairly good attendance. It was a little bit less than we were expecting because I think people had thought it might be too muddy, but we had a great walk. If you have not hiked that trail, I really highly recommend you do it. It gives you complete vistas all around the city and of Mount Diablo. It is beautiful. And I would say it's the best time to do it will be within the next month because of all the wildflowers too. So our Open Space Advisory Committee meeting group met on Monday, and we talked about the waterways, bridges and culverts and nearby trails. And we received a presentation by Robin Bartlett about that. And then Jessica Reber gave us an update on the new, the trail activities. It is the upcoming OSAC hikes. It's the summer trails activities update through Sports Basement. We normally don't do OSAC hikes in the summer, and Sports Basement kind of takes over from April 1st through September. And so we have a hiking challenge, and there are several hikes, and that is April 1st through the 30th is the time frame. And the OSAC led hikes will resume in September, October, and November. And that's all I have.
Commissioner Mitra?
Nothing to report this for this time because the library meeting is next tomorrow.
Okay.
And there was no innovative meeting. It's canceled again.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Lopez Lucy?
Well, on the planning, of course, that they have been working with Sunset Development on the proposals for the property that Chevron had. So I've attended 2 of those. There's another special meeting tomorrow evening on the same issue that I will attend again. My only concern on that they never mentioned that we're having any parks in this facility of 90 acres. So that does,
I don't think they've gotten there yet.
well, they may not, that's why I didn't, but what they have shown and all, they have not, they have the lake that they're going to keep and everything, but they have not gotten to parks yet. And I've asked some questions, but I will be there again to ask maybe if they have any plans for parks. And so that's what's been happening on that. There is no EDAC meeting, so that's my report on
Thank
planning.
you. Vice Chair Dorlick,
Yes,
do you have any Arts Advisory Committee reports?
well, we had the art summit
Yeah,
and that was well attended. So that was the main event.
okay.
That would be it.
Okay, Commissioner Ellicott Pesic? Commissioner Breed?
I got something. So
You got something.
I went to teen council. So
Nice.
yeah, right.
And see, we would love for our teen commissioner to be here, but she's not, so we get to hear from you.
It wasn't a lot, but I mean, they talked about the teen council interviews. The cool thing that's going to be, can I use the word cool? But the neat thing that's happening is there's going to be a teen conference with all the cities, and we'll be hosting it, and they're working on assignments on how that process will go during the day. So I think it's great experience for the teens to take leadership in that. And so that's kind of sorry about that. That's kind of the big news on the teen council. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, great. So two things for, well, several meetings, but I attended the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee meeting.
Thank you,
on-
Heidi.
You're welcome. On the 11th, and they had a very comprehensive presentation by our city attorney, Martin Lyons, about the Brown Act, which is always a good refresher for everybody. They always do a public comment section. Someone suggested soy milk for the lunches and Spanish classes at the community center. And they had officer elections. So some of you probably know Richard Adler was appointed chair. And our liaison from the Senior Advisory Committee will be Sandra Lee March. And so, and then they always go over an Alcosta Senior Communities in Community Center quarterly participation report, but much of that is found in your staff report. So you guys probably already have that. So that's that. All right, so some months, especially long months, there are 3 city council meetings between Parks Commission meetings. So I'm going to try to fly, okay? And there are others too, like the budget workshop. Okay, so on March 14th, there was a proclamation declaring March as American Red Cross Month, a proclamation declaring March as Prescription Drug Abuse Awareness Month. If you don't know April and her story about having lost her son and the dedication she has shown to the opioid crisis, you need to get to know that. It's amazing. There was a public hearing regarding the renewed resolution denying the appeals by regarding the marketplace development. They upheld the camp out appeal. They upheld the applicant appeal, and they denied the camp out appeal. And that's a whole giant thing. If you guys ever want to look at that. They did make their city council appointments to the Library Advisory Committee, Arts Advisory, and Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. They heard the Arts Advisory Committee annual report. They approved the fee resolution. I'm trying to keep it really fast here. Let's see here. So that's good. On the 28th, there was discussion and direction given regarding the state of the mayor, as we all know, who had a stroke and who we all wish well and hope he gets better fast. The long and the short of it is that they authorized an ad hoc committee to, there were lots of community members and leaders in the community came to speak on behalf of Mayor Hudson. And they did appoint an ad hoc subcommittee to draft a letter extending their well wishes to the mayor, which was approved last night or night before last, perhaps. No, last night. Anyway, and basically asking that the mayor keep them up to date on his condition and timing of his return. And so that's enough said on that one. Let's see here. Also on the 5th, the city council appointed a new planning commissioner. So I don't know if you all know that Rick Marks had retired or he had resigned, and they appointed Ashar Ahmed. He's a lawyer. So they'll have 3 lawyers on the planning commission. It's a very, very influential, very impressive group of folks on there. So, and then they of course had the budget workshop yesterday. It's all blending together, Kathy. And that of course is sort of a first view of the 2023-24 operating budget. And it really is quite interesting to see where our budget fits into the broader picture. The consensus is that the city has mostly recovered costs from the COVID revenue losses with some gaps. One of the really glaring gaps is the transit occupancy tax, the TOT, and we're, I think like, what is that, like $1 million down or something on that. So, and I don't think, it doesn't sound like there's much hope that it'll ever regain to pre-pandemic levels. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. Fortunately, the proposed budget, and again, this is a first look at the budget, they are still proposing to maintain reserves. We have a reserve policy of 36%. So even with the accommodations, that's where we're at. And then there was this discussion about us generally, which sort of blends with our budget discussion, that we generally and historically have undercharged for services when you look at what we charge for services compared to other communities. So I do think it's good that we sort of look at where are we at with what we're charging as a Parks and Community Services Department and see if there is some wiggle room there to increase revenue. Because I know Kathy and her team really, as all the departments did, took a look at where they could cut, where they could increase revenues. And Kathy did a great job. So, and her team did a great job. And then there were special presentations, proclamations declaring April 15th as Arbor Day, April 22nd as Earth Day. My factoid, even at this late hour, 550,000 trees in our community. And so I think that's kind of pretty cool. And also there was the presentation to the foundation for their award, not only their local district award, but their state award. And also with regard to Earth Day, did you know that we have 19 certified trash-free restaurants in San Ramon, and most of them are in cities? And most of them are in City Center. That's my Cliff Clavin moment of the day. And then there was the resolution actually was passed at last night's meeting, authorizing the vice mayor to sign that letter to Mayor Hudson. And then finally, there was an update on general plan zoning consistency determinations under the Housing Accountability Act, which is the amended SB 330 that you all hear about, the Housing Act. And basically what happened is that staff worked with the Planning Commission in light of state law to come up with a process for determining compliance with objective standards. So if you know anything about development, that will make sense to you. Otherwise, we'll talk about it another time. But it was, it sounded like it was a very appreciated and will be a very productive process improvement as we consider development projects early in phase. That's it.
Nice job.
I had to look. Please be the last page, and it was. Okay, do we get everybody? Anybody else? Yeah.
Trash free, when we do art and festival, things like that. Do we, when we're working with the food vendors, do we try and avoid the plastic and the whatever?
I can answer that question.
We talked about share.
That's been going on for about 10 years.
Okay, thank you. That's enough. I got that.
Yeah, because I can tell you how hard it was 10 years ago to find the recyclable forks, knives, and spoons that were.
I bet, yeah. Okay, do we have any public comment on this final item?
Yes, we do, from
Okay.
Taiwan as a country.
Okay.
I was also at the open space meeting, and I just want to say that whenever I go to open space meeting, I want to tear my hair out. It is really a committee that is serving other entities, specifically the East Bay Regional Parks that we pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to, and they do nothing except that they just, appropriate our land into trails. And their next project is that they want to connect our trails, which scares the heck out of me. I haven't been to Dublin. The most recent one the trip that I took to Dublin scared the heck out of me. Their PD can only sit on the parking lot and watch a bunch of ruthless and unruly teenagers basically throwing water bottles at the sidewalks while I was waiting for a traffic light. And then there's literally someone walking towards me in my lane while I was stopped for red. This is really scary, and our PD really should not be held responsible for the crimes and for the dog bites that are brought in by this entity. They need to be responsible and enforcing safety and public health, or I really don't want them connected with us. It is like a civilized, land connecting with the barbaric third world country. I don't want that. And Mr. Peoples is sitting on their board. There is conflict of interest. He should not be the chair. I have repeatedly asked him to resign. He's still sitting as a chair, and this is really shameful. Team conference agenda must be revealed to the community ahead of time. Otherwise, they're like Mao red guards for you guys. God knows what you guys are using these youngsters to do behind the eyes and ears of the parents and the community. You are already interviewing, and I have been an interviewer. I interviewed for UC school system who are send kids overseas for exchange programs. And the way they do it is 10 students per scholarship reader like me. Each student I have, sampled their writing takes about half an hour. So I really question 3 commissioners reading 80+ applications. Probability doesn't make sense that it was a fair, kind of interview. You guys really need to do better than that. Perhaps divvy it up 80 to 7. Each of you read maybe 10 to 12 applications. Then you guys recommend from the 10 to 12, maybe 3. Then the 3 can interview, I would be okay with that. For all three to read 80 something, you must be God. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're at the end. Thank you.
I think that's your syndrome.
I think that, thank you all for your participation tonight. We got a lot of good work done, even though it lasted a long time, and we are adjourned.
Thank you. I am so grateful to the commission for its incredible energy.